Fabiano on smiling. This is immortality stuff.
MVL is on the doorstep here. Look at the confidence that he's playing with. It's all over.
12 seconds.
G7.
Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is the winner of the CrunchLabs Masters.
Black simply takes and goes rook d1 and picks up white's bishop, and he'll let his clock run out. Alexander Grischuk, he does it.
Wow, 1 second and he's blundered Duda. He's just gone from winning to losing in one move. This is just madness.
Right with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again.
Magnus magic. He's done it again.
When you need to win against Magnus Carlsen, not sure what to recommend.
This is just knockout.
Is he trying for a stalemate trap there?
That was so sneaky.
Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat.
Checkmate in one coming in. These are the last.
Oh, and he's losing!
And Magnus cannot believe it. He's so mad at himself.
Wow, you never see this. Absolute hats off. Welcome back to the Julius Baer Generation Cup. This is the winners quarterfinals in the top division. I'm Grandmaster Robert Hess, alongside me, Grandmaster David Howell. David, I haven't seen you in a bit, just coming back from the Olympiad. How are you feeling about today's action and all these great matchups?
Yeah, it's been a while, Robert. I've missed you. I've also missed my favorite series of tournaments, the Champions Chess Tour, and I couldn't be more excited. They do say the cream rises to the top, and I mean, we're so blessed. So many of the world's top players here with us now at such a crucial moment of the season.
And all the fans are blessed to have you back. You've been such a mainstay of the Champions Chess Tour. Let's quickly remind everybody of what happened to this point. We started with the CrunchLabs Masters. Then in May, it was the Chess.com Classic. In July, we had CrunchLabs Masters. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have the Julius Baer Generation Cup. David, this is all to get to Oslo, Norway, a place that's pretty near and dear to your heart.
That's right. I live just down the road from the venue of those tour finals, and yeah, I'm hoping to throw a dinner or two, maybe pop round, Robert, if you can.
Well, don't tell all the fans because they will be coming. Reminder that tickets, keep an eye out for them. Chess.com will release more information shortly, but information that's already out in the public. It is the bracket for this top division. And David, it kind of looks like what you just saw in the Olympiad playing halls. Many of the world's best players, they have qualified for the top division.
That's right. This is a who's who of world chess. It was similar, as you mentioned, at the Olympiad, just seeing these giants face off against each other every single day. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Levon Aronian, two good friends. They know each other extremely well. Jan Nepomniachtchi wasn't at the Olympiad, but he knows Magnus Carlsen well. Two long-time rivals. Alireza Firouzja skipped the Olympiad as well, but he faces a real beast, Vladimir Fedoseev, bang in form, and Grischuk, who was a captain at the Olympiad of the Iranian team, against Arjun. Yeah, Robert, it's going to be hard to pick a game to follow. They're all so exciting.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because no matter where you turn your head, you've got one of the best players on the planet seated there. So as we talk about how each player arrived in the Julius Baer Generation Cup from different paths, some thanks to their performance in the CrunchLabs Masters. You see Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Alireza Firouzja, they're compatriots. They both play for France, but they were foes in the CrunchLabs Masters. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave came out on top, and Alexander Grischuk, he came out on top in the second division. It earned him that promotion. And David, as you look at the right-hand column, these players all qualified based on match play yesterday.
Yeah, and you were covering all of the action, Robert. It was dramatic, it was fast, it was furious. Slightly different format now, but still plenty to play for. And I think a lot of the fans were happy with the field we were given after those playoff matches.
And some players, they're ready. They just had to perform a day ago. Others, they may get a little bit too much rest. So we'll see if they're in the right frame of mind today. But the players that did get rest, they're often the players who are at the top of the standings. So let's look at the tour standings, which are brought to you by Julius Baer, the official wealth management partner of the Champions Chess Tour. Because, David, the top four names here, they're already qualified for the season end finals. The top three, based on winning a leg that gets you an immediate ticket, Jan Nepomniachtchi cannot be caught by too many people in terms of leaderboard points. So, David, as you look at these names here, which are some that stand out to you?
Yeah, plenty of names, Robert. If the tournament ended, if the tour ended right now, it would be those top 8 who qualify and will be in Oslo in a couple of months. To my eyes, it's going to be the likes of Alexander Grischuk down there in 9th place, Levon Aronian in 10th place, Vladimir Fedoseev in 11th, who are there and thereabouts, but they need to score heavily, or they need to go deep into this tournament in order to try and bank their spots in the Oslo finals.
And the 3 names that you just pointed out, 9 through 11, they're all in the top division with a lion's share of points are up for grabs. So thanks to our partners, Julius Baer, for continued support in the Champion Chess Tour. But for those of you who may be new to the Champion Chess Tour, your name would not be David Howell, that's for sure. But here is an explainer video to give you the X's and O's for what has happened and what's yet to come.
Every Champions Chess Tour event kicks off with a play-in tournament, followed by match play on the second day to determine placement across divisions 1, 2, and 3. The remaining players then compete in these 3 divisions across 6 days of grueling yet thrilling double elimination knockout chess. All players are battling to earn their chunk of the $300,000 prize fund and tour leaderboard points. But the biggest prize is a spot directly to the live finals at the end of the year. After 3 legs of the tour, Alireza Firouzja, Magnus Carlsen, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave have each won an event and secured their golden ticket. Now, with just 1 tournament remaining, the race intensifies. Who will take the last seats in the final? 2 stages, 3 divisions, 1 chance for glory. This is the Julius Baer Generation Cup.
Here in the Julius Baer Generation Cup, we do have 3 divisions like the other tour legs that have happened thus far. We will focus our attention on the top division where 8 great names are going to be vying for that grand prize, and also for those who have not already qualified, a ticket to the season end finals in Oslo, Norway. And when you talk about this field, David, we can start with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He won the CrunchLabs Masters ahead of Alireza Firouzja. The question is, it's so difficult with all these stacked fields to do it twice in a row. Can a player like Maxime do just that?
Oh, he's definitely capable, Robert. We've seen Maxime over the years, especially in speed chess, rack up those tournament victories. I think he's got some new glasses as well. He's looking sharp, he's looking focused, and for him, it's all about flow. If he starts well, he tends to be full of confidence. And his opening repertoire has been talked about a lot throughout the years, but just it seems to be working right now. And I know a lot of fans out there will be rooting for Maxime. How about yourself? Who do you think is going to be the favorite throughout this week?
Well, we look at Alireza Firouzja on screen, David, and it's a great segue by our production team here. I can't tell, there's a bull in the background there, but it kind of looks like it could be a Chicago bull. It's just part of it. But no matter what it is, you know that Alireza, he brings the style. And I'm not just talking in terms of artwork, in terms of fashion. His chess playing lately has been on another level. It seems like he has rebounded from a tough year in 2023. And David, I feel like across the events that he's played in, the Grand Chess Tour, Sinquefield Cup, all these major events, it feels like Alireza is really back.
That's right. Alireza just on fire the last few months. And here we see Jan Nepomniachtchi. Some last-minute fair play checks, Robert. Nice to see a peek behind the curtain there. But also, we know he's been playing over the board chess today. Long, long day for Jan Nepomniachtchi.
He's playing in the Gashima Memorial, made a draw in his latest game against the youngster Aiden Suleimanli from Azerbaijan. But Jan Nepomniachtchi in great form over the board. He won 3 matchups in a row, and then he lost one, immediately won another. So he's in great form. And now a question about Jan's compatriot, somebody he knows very well, Alexander Grischuk. He won the 2nd division in the CrunchLabs Masters, but David, he just served as the captain of the Iranian team. And as we know, the captains often prepare quite extensively for their players. So he plays Arjun Erigaisi, someone whose games he almost definitely just looked at in great detail.
Yeah, I don't envy Grischuk playing one of the most informed players in the world right now, Arjun Erigaisi. But I was hanging out with Grischuk a little bit during the Olympiad. We spoke a few times. He looks so chilled. I think he really enjoyed kind of marshalling the troops there, the Iranian youngsters, a lot of wonder kids. And like you say, he will have been studying openings. He will be itching to get into the battle and to sit at the board himself. Erigaisi, though, Arjun, what more can we say, Robert? Maybe the player of 2024 so far?
Yeah, he has been for sure. Arjun, guys, he seems unstoppable. But lately, Vladimir Fedoseev has brought his best game of chess. He beat Magnus Carlsen with black in the Olympiad. Yesterday, he was on fire. The day before, he won the Swiss. And look at Fedoseev. He's upset about something. I don't know what that is, but he's just saying, let's get that chess going. That is a really big reaction from Fedoseev. I guess we'll have to figure out what's going on back there.
Wow, I normally see him just really calm, cool, and collected, but yeah, something's bothering him before the games. Maybe we'll find out a bit later. Maybe it was the fair play camera falling down. But here, Levon Aronian, another cool customer and another big fan favorite. Didn't always have the best time at the Olympiad, but did win some key games there, Robert. What do you make of Levon's chances in this event?
Levon, he's bringing back that past glory. We know Levon Aronian is a 3-time Olympiad gold medalist, somebody at his peak who was above 28:30. That is really rare air. And so for Levon to have the Olympiad that he did, a very rocky start, but then going to win a silver medal, both individually and for the team, David, it feels like we might see that old Levon coming back.
Yeah, and as we all know, the chess world is a better place when Levon Aronian is playing well. And yeah, Robert, this is just a bunch of the players. We also have Magnus Carlsen to enter the action a bit later, if and when he arrives. Probably not by bicycle this time, but either way, what a field we have.
Well, it is a rainy day in London, and Magnus, he was able to bike through some serious rains. And this tournament, it is going to be quick. It is a very fascinating set of matches that we have ahead, but the time control, 10 minutes, 2 seconds increment added for each and every move that's played. 2.5 points wins the match. It is best of 4. The winners, they stay up in the winners bracket, move on to the semis. The losers, they're still alive. This is double elimination like the previous Champions Chess Tour events. But as you said, David, when we talk about elimination, talk about the best of the game, there is one name that always stands out. It's Magnus Carlsen. Although in this year's CCT, he has not won every event that he's played in. It seems like other players are rising to the challenge.
That's right. You said it earlier. It's maybe the most difficult thing in chess to win 2 of these events back to back. Winning one of them, if you're on a hot streak, maybe, but to win 2 in a row is difficult. We're used to it from Magnus Carlsen, but he hasn't been able in recent tournaments. Nice to see him there repping the chess.com t-shirt. He was just doing some last minute rearranging, choosing the perfect chair, attention to detail. And yeah, he might be frowning, but he's going to be ready to get going any moment now.
And yesterday against Min Lei, he dropped that pawn on his chest for a moment. He was up 2 pawns, just winning advantage, and he was like, oh shoot, he needs to be more careful today against Jan Nepomniachtchi, because Jan is in great form. We're seeing it happen over the board. We've seen it in match play. Yesterday, Jan did not struggle at all with Jose Martinez, and so we see him here looking like Steve Jobs in like a full black turtleneck for Jan Nepomniachtchi. But can he get the job done against the #1 rated player in the world?
Oh, wow. That was Daniel level of pun almost there, Robert. Yeah, getting the job done against Magnus Carlsen, no easy feat, but it looks like he will start with the white pieces. Jan Nepomniachtchi, smile on his face as well. Nice to see the players just getting in the zone, all with different ways, all in different kind of routines before the game start, Robert. And what about this one? Is Magnus going to shine through? Is he going to continue asserting his authority on the field?
I think that Magnus is always the favorite, no matter who he's playing against. Jan does give him a serious challenge, but we know the track record. I mean, it's been the Magnus Carlsen show. These two, on the other hand, David, Levon and Maxime, they're very good friends. And that can actually hurt your chess for both of them. I remember years ago in the Bullet Chess Championship of all time formats, they played bullet chess against one another and they were laughing at each other, having a grand old time. But then when you take things seriously with somebody that you respect so much, it can be hard to flip that switch.
That's right, and they've met each other so many times. I would wager hundreds of times, both over the board and online. I remember World Cups as well, high stakes, candidates' places on the line. These two were just knocking chunks out of each other. And yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I don't think there's a favorite in this one. I think it's a pure 50-50. Just the more informed player will win.
And I actually see that between those two, 7 wins each in classical chess. So you are right, 50-50 between MVL and Levon Aronian, 32 draws. But these two, they have not squared off all that much. Arjun Erigaisi, part of that newer generation who needs zero introduction because he was just introduced to the Prime Minister of India. Not even sure if that was the first time he met him, but still, Arjun, he is a national hero. He's number 3 in the world in live ratings, and he's taken on Alexander Grischuk, who used to be number 2 in the world in classical chess, a 3-time World Blitz champion. So obviously somebody that Arjun has to take very seriously.
That's right. I think both of these players are going to be extremely determined, extremely focused. A clash of generations. When I played against Erigaisi in Blitz a few years ago, I said to him, dude, you're going to be 2,800 in a couple of years. And he's almost there now. He's just so fast, so impressive. I don't think I've ever been steamrolled off the board as brutally as against Arjun Erigaisi a few years back. And he's lived up to all of his potential. Like you said, national celebrity, just Zen master, Robert. The way he breezed through that field at the Olympiad, never once looking perturbed at all. But Grischuk, my childhood favorite player, time travel addict himself, and a genius as well, a real virtuoso once he gets going. Oh, we're just so spoiled with this field.
Yeah, we really are. And for Grischuk and Arjun, that will be a clash of generations and styles. Arjun plays at a lightning pace, as does Alireza Firouzja, our current bullet chess champion, someone who made the Speeches Championship finals. But David, as we think about Alireza, I mean, he is a star, but his last performance, notable one, was a resounding defeat at the hands of Magnus Carlsen, somebody that Faceoff just took down in the Olympiad on the greatest stage there. So Faceoff's kind of on a high note, and Alireza's last chess that was in the public eye was not actually a good performance from him.
Yeah, you were there, Robert, at the Speed Chess Championship in Paris, in his home country these days. How do you think he took it? How is he going to bounce back? He, at least to me, watching the interviews, he seemed in decent spirits despite his landslide defeat against Magnus.
Yeah, he was in pretty good spirits. He did beat Hikaru Nakamura quite handily before that. And for Alireza, it kind of was like, well, Magnus is gonna Magnus. When Magnus Carlsen plays the way he did there, who really has a shot against him? And I think Faceoff will say, I'll raise my hand. I'll put my hat in the ring, because Faceoff, with the black pieces, you can't say it enough. How many people have beaten Magnus Carlsen with black? Not many. And for Slovenia, Faceoff led the charge. They were on board 1 of the Olympiad by the end, and he did lose a game that he called one of his worst in a long time against Gukesh. But Faceoff, he is proving tournament after tournament that he can hang with the best of them.
Yeah, the big fish. We've been talking about him kind of producing these great results throughout the years, but consistency has really been added to his game. And he's here, he's hanging with the best. Like you said, Olympiad, he was a real talisman for the Slovenian team, his new team there. And okay, it looks like we're going to get action, Robert. Exciting times. And how fast, how furious are the players going to start? Do you think we'll see some cagey games? Do you think we're going to see some big opening battles?
Well, Alexander Grischuk is playing, so I know the board in green. That will happen quite slowly. We could take our time there. And Arjun Erigaisi always plays at a lightning pace. But I guess, David, while we have a moment, which of these 4 colors is your favorite?
Oof, I used to say that red was my favorite color when I was a kid. Now I say black and white just to be, just to add that extra nerdy flavor. But I'm going to say red today as well. Alireza Firouzja against Vladimir Faceoff. How about yourself?
Well, we did see the bull on Alireza Firouzja's wall, so if he sees that red, he may charge. And we know that he holds very little back on the chessboard. But for me, I think of these colors, I usually am a blue guy, but I actually do like this shade of purple. I think it's easy on the eyes, and the match that we have is Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Magnus Carlsen, so that's never a bad pick.
Yeah, no bad picks here today, that's for sure. And the players, as they make their last-minute preparations, maybe choosing last-minute openings. I know that isn't how it should be done, but it's a long match today, Robert, and often we do see differing strategies. Sometimes players stick to the same opening, just stubbornly trying to show that they've done their homework better than their opponents. Sometimes they just try to surprise the opponent in every single game. Maybe the Magnus Carlsen trademark there. I'm expecting a variety of approaches today.
And we do have a move, so the games are underway officially. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he gets the white pieces, and David, Levon has been playing the French throughout the Julius Baer Generation Cup, and it's not very often seen at this highest level, but Levon, it's tried and true for him, and it's been played with great success.
That's right. The French defense, it's had a bit of a renaissance, especially in these faster time formats. Levon, when I think of him, I associate him with having the space, with having the center, the development, and trying to switch attacks to the wing and trying to be as dynamic as possible. The French, you have to be energetic as black because you do have a slightly cramped structure in the center. And early H4, another trend we're used to seeing by now, Robert. I shouldn't even call it a trend, right? It's just a good move. It's just a good strategic move these days, taking space and asking Levon to castle. Maybe castle into the attack over there. What do you think, Maxime? Is he going to be happy with this opening choice?
I think that for Maxime, he's the French attacker, right? So he has everything under control in a French defense. He likes playing against it, as we saw in the candidates when he beat Jan Nepomniachtchi. So I don't think he minds anything here at all. But Levon, he is played Queen A5. It's clear, David, he wants to take on D4 and not allow White to take back with the pawn. So this is a cheeky try from Levon.
Very cheeky move, and this tends to be met in one of two ways. White can block the diagonal, I was going to say with the bishop, just to peer down at the queen and break the pin, but no, he wants to block it with a pawn potentially instead. And there are some tactics here. Black can even play moves like knight takes d4, but let's maybe leave Levon with this choice right now. It's all pieces on the board, very locked position, because we have another game that's just begun. And let's jump over there to Jan Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen. And okay, open Sicilian, Robert. This is a good start.
We know that we're in for a good time with these two because they played a world championship match against one another. And we got an early bishop b4. So what black does in these structures is if black takes on c3, white has to take back with the b pawn. So you have this compromised queenside structure, but white claims the bishop pair. So that's why Magnus has refrained. And David, in your experience, do you like these sort of not as popular, not as mainline openings from the black side, or do you feel like you're good at punishing them from the white side?
Oof, I think I'd rather be white unless I was facing Magnus Carlsen here, Robert. You do have to be very creative as black to fight against this Maroczy bind, the extra space. Magnus is a real expert at handling these, but we've seen some disasters from him over the years. He lost a game, a very painful game at the Qatar Masters last year in this type of kind of hedgehoggy structure where black puts pawns on b6, d6, everything on the 6th rank and just kind of curls up into a ball. And I am slightly biased, I must say, as a bit of a classically trained player. I am biased towards the white side. I love the space, but it is Magnus. And how about yourself? Who do you think the early stages are going to pan out for? Pretty much new territory already.
I think it was a good decision from Magnus's perspective because Jan Nepomniachtchi, we know how quickly he plays even in classical chess. So to put him on the clock, to make him feel uncomfortable, it's not often that occurs, so it's a good strategy from Magnus. But I also like the way Jan is handling this, right? Bishop g5, not just trying to play it safe, protect all the c4 and e4 pawns. Let me go with the initiative. Let's try to get my pieces active because black's knight e5 move, at some point, that could be annoying to meet. But the white queen can always slide over to g3. So that is available to Jan, and he's not super worried about these knight attacks and forks.
Yeah, there's all sorts of tactics, as you mentioned there, Robert. I wouldn't be surprised to see a move like rook a to c1, not just merely to defend this pawn indirectly, but setting up some potential knight jumps into d5, and the black queen feels slightly uncomfortable, stared down by the white rook. That would be very much up Jan Nepomniachtchi's alley as well, just energetic play, improving pieces with threats. I'm also remembering Magnus Carlsen against Pragnananda from Norway Chess. He employed this exact opening, got slightly squeezed, so I think it's yet to be seen. But at least the clock does speak in Magnus's favor, already a 2-minute advantage. So as you mentioned, definitely surprise value, counting for something here at the early days.
And he may not repeat it later. That remains to be seen. But for now, I do think Magnus is happy with how this opening has gone. So let's take a step away from this game in particular. We do have 4 matches going on at the same time. So if we can just zone out from this one, or zoom out, I should say, and look at our other matches as well. And we see different colors, different clock management. But David, of course, Alexander Grischuk against Arjun Erigaisi, they're like, 5 moves in and not much happening just yet there. But we do see on this board, this is the more exciting one. What is going on?
Wow, this is just pure chaos, pure fire on the board, Robert. We were here just, 5-6 moves ago, but the position has exploded. These two players are entertainers, and I think we have to jump in, analysis board, and backtrack, rewind, because right now, Levon Aronian is living life on the brink. The eval bar might say only a slight advantage to white, but he has to find the move knight to e7 that the blue arrow shows right now. d5 is under threat. There's all sorts of queen h5 threats to the black king. You need to bring the defensive forces around. There we go. But let's just show what happened since we were last here very quickly. We did see a capture. Remember, there was a pin against the white king on this diagonal. White broke that pin with a move b4. The black queen slid back. So black's queen has actually lost a few tempi already, and normally that's not a good sign. If you want to open the center, but you've lost time, you might well just get punished, and knight to f4. Suddenly the white pieces, which didn't look too impressive, spring to life, and knight takes e6. The knight sitting in the heart of the black position, g7 under fire, defended, and let's just catch up to the current position. Knight to f8 was the only move to eliminate this strong white knight. It retreated, and the other knight had to step back, only move, and wow. Do you think he's going to weather this storm, Robert? It looks so scary for black.
Yeah, look at all these light squares on the king's side. They look vulnerable. There's a knight on f8 and e7. Those knights are very passive defensive pieces. The knight on f4 is, clearly on the offensive. That knight can go to h5 as well to hit the bishop on f6. The bishop can't move anywhere. g7 would be under attack. So I do like the flexibility of white's position. And as you said, knight takes d5. Like, that d5 pawn is protected by one piece. But with queen h5 check available, this is a tactic that black needs to look out for.
Yeah, great spot, Robert. There's all sorts of threats in the air. Black has to worry about the king here from multiple angles. Maybe we just show that tactic if black were to be careless here and play a move like a5, which looks tempting, trying to break down the white queen side. Then your move, knight takes d5, boom, and a check. And this is not just any old check. You pick up the knight next, and black's position has collapsed. The white bishop's coming out to b5, bishop c4. Oh, there's just too many tactics to name, and the black king would die a very painful death. So Levon Aronian, a couple of minutes down on the clock, finally starting to think, it might be too late from a practical point of view. He's got to be so accurate just to survive. And okay, bishop e6, he does hold the center, and the bishop might block any checks now. Good move. He's trying to just stem the bleeding here.
Yeah, at first I would say that this is big advantage for Maxime. He's well up on the clock. Levon showed that he's going to play his French defense, but then he was the one thinking. But as I look at the current setup of pieces here, black is getting solid. And if you get a couple moves in, bishop back to f7, try to get that knight off of f4, offer a trade, it does feel like black may be okay. But as you said, David, the other diagonal is also a problem. You play bishop f7, in comes queen a4 check. So no matter where I look, I feel like black is almost there, and yet white has something up his sleeve.
Oof, scary times for Levon Aronian right now. If not bishop f7, what else? You wish you could castle right now, but pieces in the way. They say knight on f8, there is no mate, but okay, I'm going to say there might be an exception in this game. Maybe we zoom out for now. Levon Aronian has weathered the first storm at least. There might be more to come later, but Robert, we look at the colors here. Which other position catches your eye?
Well, I would say all the way to the right. Alexander Grischuk against Arjun Erigaisi. We know that Arjun's a speed demon, but look at how bad his pawn structure is. Like, this is what Grischuk could only, pray for from the opening. Not many moves have been played, but black is just much worse on a board in green.
Oh, yeah, that's an opening disaster. And you predicted it 100% correctly, Robert. Only 11 moves after plenty of time in this game. Alexander Grischuk already burned half his time just to get here, but it has been worth it so far. If this black pawn on c6, if it were back on b7, we would be talking about an equal position. But right now, huge target on c6, a6 as well, huge target in the endgame. And yeah, a white knight just posting up on the c4 square can never really be challenged. So I have to agree. I'm inclined to say that white has a massive advantage. It's probably the worst position Arjun's had in months, it's got to be said. He's just so impressive in the opening usually, but Grischuk, he's burning a lot of time. I'm wondering whether he's contemplating going immediately for greed, attacking two pawns at the same time, but why move a piece you've already developed? The white queen looks beautiful here. I was going to say, bring the knight to c4. He's gone a different path here, but equally effective. A knight on c4, the bishop will come out to g5. Oh, everything's coming with tempo for white. There we go. Rook to d1 next is going to hit the black queen with gain of time. This looks beautiful. This is a dream for white. Yeah, I don't see anything positive for black here, Robert.
No, I can't either. And if we can quickly bring up an analysis board, I was wondering, how did this happen? Because we're not that far into the game. Arjun missed a tactic. If we go back to move 9, black played this move G6. After the swap on C6, you already have a slightly compromised pawn structure. But here G6 was played and D4 was found by Grischuk. So he's giving up his D pawn, saying, please take me. My rook on E1 will very happy to see that pawn E5 go out the way, because now my pawn goes to E5 and black's whole position just falls apart immediately. So I think Arjun, he was trying just to develop his pieces, but he took one turn too many and allowed white to open up the position on favorable terms.
Yeah, and this is how we got that pawn structure. Great spot, Robert. Just backtracking there, really important detail, D4 there with gain of time for white. And yeah, if we catch up with the current position, Grischuk needs to speed up, but he still is in a dominant position right now. He's offering a trade of queens. If you get a chance to capture black's queen on E6, black's structure is even worse than ever before. Any queen trade here obviously is going to favor white with long-term targets on the queen side. So Grischuk, the older player here in the driver's seat in these early stages.
Playing super well. I mean, he's just trying to get the queens off, make the most of his advantages on the queen side, and they're going to persist, right? That C6 pawn, you can imagine knight C4, knight A5, things like that. The knight is a jumpy piece, and black's bishop on G7, David, I think we have to talk about that for just a quick second. It's just a passive piece. It defends your knight, stares into its own pawn. So white's pieces are on better squares. The rook's in the center of the board, and so I just think that Grischuk has a lot of fun here, and Arjun will find it very difficult to hold on to this game.
That's right. I think Arjun here, he's going to be praying for a draw right now, and it will be a huge missed opportunity if Grischuk cannot wrap this up, cannot convert his advantage. Still plenty of time on the clock, I should say, at least by his standards, Robert. So I think we're all expecting Grischuk, to put even more pressure on. Maybe let's zoom out for now, because I see some eval bars also rising on the other boards, and some crazy stuff happening.
Why don't we
actually?
I think I know where you want to go, right? You want to go to MVL and Levon once more, because Levon's king. I mean, it has not gone to safety. So I think, knight takes D5. Black has 2 pieces that can capture back, but if you take with the queen, you lose the queen on the spot thanks to a pin on the diagonal. Take with a knight, you lose your other knight. So MVL is firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, that is a beautiful deflection tactic. He's been forced to trade rooks, though, so black will get the open file. But, I mean, there's king on the light squares. You called it a while ago, Robert. It's just dying from every angle. And as long as white can castle at some point, there's going to be pawns for the picking. This one has gone off the rails. Knight takes E3. The eval bar shouts here. I'm looking at bishop E8 check. I'm looking at some tricks, some tactics. Do you see a knockout?
I'm looking for it. I really want to find it. You could go rook takes A8 with bishop E8, bishop G6 checkmate, right? So maybe bishop E8 first. So you're right to start with that move. So the king has to go to the final rank, and then rook takes rook. That way your rook's not under attack, and bishop moves with mate.
Yeah, beautiful, Robert. You found one of the paths to victory. He hasn't moved yet, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, but any tactic with bishop to E8 looks very strong right now. Ooh, he does play that move. Will we see resignation? Will he give up his queen? He does. It is a queen sacrifice for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, but he gets the whole house in return. Not quite checkmate. I guess the black knight will block, but yeah, equivalent to checkmate here, Robert, I would say. It's going to be a bunch of pieces and an ongoing attack for white.
And so black is just going to park that bishop on D8 and say, I'm not getting checkmated for now. I can hang in here, but you have 2 rooks for a queen. And when you have this material imbalance, you look to see who's got the safer king. That's obviously white, who can still castle kingside. Not yet, though, because if you do castle kingside, you get checkmated on H2. So don't fall for that. But if you don't, you should just win this game quite simply for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave.
Yeah, it's not quite over, but he has more than enough time on the clock to calculate his way to victory right now. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Computer says plus 5.5. That's pretty decisive right now. So I say we leave this position and maybe we go check out another game. We haven't given any love to Alireza Firouzja and Vladimir Fedoseev. Maybe we can briefly jump there because we did see a crazy position a while ago with the white king marching up the board, white central pawns storming down. And I've got to say, Vladimir Fedoseev, the conqueror of Magnus Carlsen, looks like he's in big trouble, Robert.
You would think based on his position and his time, and then I look at him, and he looks like nothing's the matter, right? So he's just seemingly trying to figure out what to do next. And what's the material count here, David? Is it actually equal material? Like, I thought white was up something because you have an e5 and a d6 passer, but now look at Fedoseev. He's locked in. He's staring intently at that center. He's trying to undermine it completely, but is he in time, David?
Oh, not quite in time. White's just able to support his pawn center there with f4. It's almost connect 5 here, Robert, if we include the bishop on g3. White's pawn's connected. Watch out for the white king to kind of make a dart forward later, especially if the rooks disappear from the board and the white king is far closer to the action. Then again, blockades, fortresses, the best pieces for those are knights, and these knights can be hard to remove once they sit on those light squares. A rook, not a great blockader though. Oh, I'm skeptical. I think Firouzja should have this in the bag. He just needs to improve his knight, maybe even step forward with the king at some point, and the black fortress should eventually collapse.
Just don't blunder. Don't move this rook from d1, say to f1, because rook d takes d6, and the rook on e4 is loose. That's the one easy thing to overlook if you're Firouzja. You think you have a protected passed pawn, so let's just move away my pieces. But no, the rook on e4 is loose, and loose pieces drop off. So that tactic of rook takes d6, it doesn't work so long as the white rook stays on d1. But I could imagine a scenario where Fedoseev brings his other knight in, and like knight d7, knight f6. You just have a lot of things to consider here if you are Firouzja, and that's why he's wisely taking his time.
And yeah, it looks like he's going to try and come up with something special to break the blockade. My eyes have gone back to that game we've been focusing on, maybe the game of the first round so far, Robert. I think we have to jump back there. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave against Levon Aronian. The advantage is gone. It was plus 5. We thought it was checkmate. We thought it was game over. I nearly said it's not going to be that easy, but I thought he was going to get it. And suddenly a level position, suddenly the white king, not as safe as it was earlier. The black pieces perfectly coordinated. Robert, are we going to see a huge turnaround?
You know what I'm looking at, David? It's the clock. Was Maxime playing a little bit too quickly, trying to put even more pressure on Levon because Levon has 30 seconds left? But that's what we say at this highest level. They can afford to take some time once you've reached a winning position. It might just have been more difficult than immediately met the eye. I fully concede that possibility. But you look at how much time Maxime has left, maybe he regrets not spending a little more to put the game away.
Yeah, and suddenly black has huge threats. Queen into e2 was definitely menaced with the e3 pawn falling first. b5, a bit of a strange one from Levon Aronian. I guess he's just saying you cannot improve your pieces as white. As soon as the white rook moves away, there's going to be queen checks on the back rank. The other white rook is fixed on a really passive, really bad square actually on h3. And the black queen, black bishop just controlling most of the board. So Levon Aronian, credit to him, fighting with no time on the clock. If we kind of flip it, Robert, we can say how resourceful he was in the defense there, just with no time. Wow, this one's still 3 results possible.
That's true. All 3 results, because white's king is not particularly safe. If e3 drops, then black might have a passer of his own. So I do think for the time being, Maxime shouldn't be too worried, especially because Levon now, he's down to 25 seconds. How do you actually save this game for black? Like, what ideas do you have, or should you just shuffle your pieces around?
I think the plan is to do the shuffle, the good old shuffle. He might put a bishop on g3 and say, okay, you're locked in, your king is stuck, mating net there. He might put a bishop on f2 or just keep it chilling on g5 and the white pawn's not making any headway. Okay, maybe a level position, but still action ahead. Robert, I'm going to drag us back to the other game we just left. A bit of a yo-yo here, sorry everyone at home, because we have a winner of King of the Hill, the white king, glorious in the center. Here, Firouzja has sacrificed the exchange, but it's all about the white pawns.
Oh, yeah. Nobody looks at this position and says, black's up material, woo! Now, you have an extra rook, but that rook is getting kicked away, and then the pawn will reach the 6th rank. And you know what they say, David? Pawns in the 6th rank, they're worth like at least a minor piece, and you've got 2 of them. So black is just toasted. And if you go knight f6 check, king c6 for white, like the king can help those pawns march forward. Oh, this is brutal.
This is brutal. It's textbook stuff from Firouzja. When you have passed pawns, just push them. Sacrifice material sometimes you have to. Every pawn is a potential queen. These are 2 potential queens. So yeah, being down a rook for bishop right now is totally irrelevant. But what have we just seen? Eval bus
Is it rook
slide.
takes d4? Can you take on d4, give up your rook on e8? He should have done that, but you see Fedoseev, he made a quick move because he's under a minute on the clock.
Wow, I think we have to rewind and show that now the white pawns, maybe not even yet, but they're guaranteed to run through. If we bring up an analysis board very quickly here, just that last move, careless from Firouzja, with plenty of time on the clock, just like with Maxime earlier, he could have, not taken this pawn, taken the knight instead. And white can make a queen, but the queen disappears immediately. The knight blockades the pawn. Suddenly black has a pawn of his own, and white's king not as effective, not able to pass the d-file, it's cut off. So, missed opportunity there from Faceoff. If we catch up, looking good for white yet again. The knight will be removed and the pawn will run through.
Actually, now it looks quite straightforward, and he takes on d7, but white can just take that back, and you have two minor pieces for a rook. And here I think knight e6 is one move that should win, king c7. There's so many moves. The black b-pawn isn't scary at all.
No, the black b-pawn is going nowhere, and that can be rounded up by the white rook at will. And two extra pieces. I think we'll see our first resignation of the day. We should update everyone. The game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen was very peaceful and did peter out towards a draw. Still plenty of action ahead in that match. But this one, Robert, decisive the whole way.
Yes, this one now is easy. So why don't we switch on over to Grischuk against Arjun Erigaisi, because Arjun, and then we see actually Firouzja wins the game. Faceoff throws in the towel. But look at this. We liked Grischuk's position out of the opening, and now there's a missing black c-pawn, but also the king on f7 is just terribly exposed.
Oof, yeah, where's that king going to hide? Queen takes c7, a huge threat right now. And you cannot really try to run for the hills, because later, after a pawn disappears on c7, the 6th rank will be conquered by the white rook. I don't see any way to save this game. Do you slide across, defend the pawns with the queen? Or clinging on by a thread here, 2 minutes for Arjun. Surely Grischuk's going to get the win. Positional dominance the whole game, Robert.
I can tell by your question. You're like queen c6, and he played at rook c8 as just one of many moves for white. Should do the trick. But yeah, I mean, Grischuk, he was ahead to start this game, and he never let go. And look at Arjun's king. He turned one queenside weakness, or a couple queenside weaknesses, into problems on the king side as well, because Arjun desperately tried to get counterplay, but it's just going to backfire. His king is exposed.
His king is exposed. He's trying to run. We're going to see a classic king hunt here. I don't know how far it's going to run. You might lose your queen on the way, but he's trying. He's wriggling here, Robert.
He's wriggling, but as you said, the queen is going to drop. I know you see the exact sequences. Checks, captures, threats. Queen d7, king g5, queen and king on the same diagonal. There it is. That's the dagger, and that's the first game for Grischuk.
And there we have it, the final game of this first round, at least, of the first winners' quarterfinals. They're all over, and 3 white wins, 3 decisive games in the end, Robert. We saw some real roller coasters, twists, turns, some wins kind of slipping away, but then at the very end, with the clock ticking down, we saw those decisive blunders.
And you're talking about Maxime Vachier-Lagrave still gets the full point. The advantage was sky high. It went back towards the center, but Levon Aronian did not have enough time. So wins for Maxime, for Alireza Firouzja, and Alexander Grischuk in the draw in the matchup between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen. Any surprises here for you, David?
I'm going to say no real surprises. Perhaps just nice zoom in on Maxime there as he was meditating. He seemed to catch us as we were watching him. I'm going to say Grischuk, maybe the star of the round, just the one-sided nature of his game against Arjun. He wasn't always winning. Arjun fought back at some point, but Grischuk got the job done, was always in control there. So I'm loving the zoom function here, Robert, as we see the players just in game mode right now.
And Grischuk on that Zoom, he was like mean mugging. He's looking at that like, did you just miss d4? I've seen this position before, and it was a wonderful game from him. So I think that Maxime, he kind of at first was crushing Levon, then let him back in the game, and then it was that second wave, right, where he was able to secure the full point. So very different styles of victories from player to player.
That's right. We saw lots of those kind of twists and turns, those second waves emerge with Maxime, with Alireza there. Just took his eye off the ball for one moment. The opponent didn't have time to capitalize on a mistake. And okay, we've got different roles now. Magnus and Jan Nepomniachtchi, very stable. Maybe the drama going to happen later, but some players are already feeling the heat, feeling that they need to strike next with the white pieces. And Robert, who's impressed you in that first game the most?
I agree with you. I think that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, just the way he was swinging from the start was really impressive. But Alexander Grischuk, Arjun, the tear that he's been on, his performance in 2024, ridiculous. So for Grischuk to win such a one-sided game, that kind of puts the fear in your opponent. We know that Arjun is amazing, but Grischuk saying, not so fast, young fella. I still got a thing or three to show you.
That's right. Doing it for the older guys, Alexander Grischuk there. And Arjun, he's been on a fantastic rise, but he hasn't had to recover from many setbacks throughout this year. So it will be interesting to see how he gets on in this next game. And yeah, that was just, wow, breathless action. I've missed it, I've got to say, Robert. I've been away for a while. Haven't commentated for a while, been playing myself, but this is way more stressful. Just watching the players, the clocks, the swings in eval.
Well, why don't we just pick one of the games just to quickly look at to see what went wrong for this side that lost the game. I mean, we have so many options because there were 3 decisive ones. So, David, I'll leave it up to you. You get to choose our adventure.
Ooh, this is a tough call, Robert. I'm going to jump into the game between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Levon Aronian, because in the end, after many, many twists and turns, we did see a winner. This was the final position with white's pawn about to run through, but I'm going to jump back a decent amount to here, where we saw queen and bishop against 2 rooks here. It's actually queen against 2 rooks. The black queen trying to sneak her way in, but ultimately not making any inroads. The black bishop dropped back. This was apparently a mistake due to bishop to f5, trading off the bishops, deflecting the black queen, but nope. Maxime tried to open up a new avenue to the black king, and this worked wonders, because once the black king was slightly more open, we saw a bit later the white rooks able to come up and do some damage. Rook to f7, a check. The black queen has gobbled up a pawn on the queen side, but this check signals the end. The g7 pawn dropping now, and it was here. I think the final mistake, queen to e1. Black should have slid back in the other direction, kept the white king honest. There's still a check here. The black queen might be able to defend across the 6th rank later. Black has to bank everything on the b pawn. Instead, however, queen to e1, the wrong direction, nothing threatened, no checks in the air, and a sacrifice to finally end all the resistance. The black bishop disappears. Not just that, but the white pawn rolls through. g4 could have been tried, but white could win in multiple ways here, even h7. And white making a new queen would have an extra bishop, and that's why Levon Aronian resigned. I mean, this was just one of many highlights, Robert, from this game alone.
I love that analysis there, because the engine can be so misleading. If we were playing that game and I had the black side, not for a second would I have said, this is an equal position. Black was always on the back foot. As soon as that move a4 came, we saw it wasn't at the exact right moment, but still, it opened up an avenue for the rooks. Rooks need open files, and this actually, I think, was the start of the end for Levon Aronian, who didn't have much time to use.
That's right. He was under pressure, let's face it, the whole game. He was lucky to even make it this far, Levon Aronian. And yeah, just he needs to switch things up. He was just a bit too slow. The French defense not working. I think that might make you smile secretly inside, Robert. But either way, yeah, playing the French against a Frenchman, risky business, and he didn't live to tell the tale.
Well, we are about to have liftoff for the second games of these matches. Levon Aronian did not survive that first game, but let's see what will happen in game 2. And as we get moves underway here in the second game of these matches, we see that we have a Sicilian. So Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he was long called a very predictable player to prepare for it because he kept going back to the tried and true. And this is an opening where I don't think you can really expect to see it at this level. That knight back on e2, a bishop on d3. What do you think Levon is aiming for right now from the white side?
Yeah, it looks like just a more positional spin on a very well-researched opening. You mentioned Maxime with his Najdorf. It's kind of his hunting ground. It has been since he was a kid, and so many good results there. So many kind of unique ideas that he's brought to the table, Maxime. Yes, it's a bit predictable, but especially in rapid, especially if Levon on the back of the Olympiad didn't have too much time to prepare to kind of come up with specific direct attacking lines, then yeah, I guess this is his fallback option. It's very trendy, I've got to say, Robert. I've never understood it, but putting a bishop on d3, it's become a bit of a theme in recent clashes in the Najdorf. I guess the white knight might come around to g3 at some point, start trying to jump into the f5 square. But yeah, it does look like a big pawn right now. So I totally understand your bemusement at the piece placement for white. Ultimately, Maxime will not be able to play any forcing lines either, and no opposite side castling I'm going to predict in this game, so more positional for both sides.
And we can already see those positional elements, right? White just gave up the dark square bishop to lay claim to that d5 square. So in these Najdorf positions, if black can successfully get d6 to d5, you often say, I don't really have some worries. But now that's a backwards pawn, bishop c4 just played. So we were just hating on that light square bishop, David, and it's come to life.
It has, but why did it do that kind of little shimmy to d3 and then to c4 and then to b3? I mean, the nuances in these openings, I'll never understand, Robert. Only the top players in the world understand these little details.
Well, while you're selling yourself short, we know that you are at that top level. We appreciate your skill and your great commentary as well. Let's zoom out of this game because it will be a positional battle for those light squares for the moment. And as we see, we have 3 other matches going on. I saw Magnus with his head in his hands, and I saw the move c5 and b5 on the board for Jan. It is his turn. So I thought, why not head to the world #1's game against his former challenger? Because this looks like it's about to be a fun variation.
Yeah, it looks guaranteed here, Robert. The black knight now jumping, early attack on the white queen, which already has been moving several times. The white queen here, she's been doing her 10,000 steps. She's been doing her exercise. She's come out to a4, to c4, back to c2. She's going to move again. Black will be aiming to regain a pawn on c5. Maybe just a quick backtrack. You mentioned some chaotic pawn moves early days in this Catalan. Interesting because this was debated in their World Championship match as well in 2021, this opening. Black here taking a pawn very early. White's queen gives a check. Blocked promptly by the black bishop, and yeah, the white queen forced back now. Very committal pawn moves we should mention from black. You've kind of opened up the white bishop's diagonal here, but you are asking big questions. And I'm wondering, for example, a move like queen to c3 in this position, just to quickly analyze, I'm wondering whether black takes this pawn anyway, because there is a nasty little skewer at the very end of the variation. The white queen cannot sufficiently defend her bishop if you slide back. There's a family fork here, a royal fork, and if you take this knight, then whoops, disaster on the back rank. I'm still wondering where the knockout blow is. It looks like something deadly on the d-file, but Magnus definitely doesn't want to enter these waters and instead moves his queen to safety, slightly awkward square, and plays the move knight to e5, opening up the bishop. So more traditional play. I think Magnus wisely dodging the tactics.
Yeah, that would have been too much to deal with. Even if you don't see the immediate win for black, you know you're asking for trouble, getting your king in the center, discovered checks galore. That's not what you want. So this type of position, on the other hand, that knight on e5 at any moment can take the bishop on d7. You look at the bishop on g2 and you're saying, that's a fantastic piece. The b5 push, is that a little bit overextended? If I take your bishop on d7, maybe at the right moment I'll win that pawn. And if black just gets defensive and plays a6, white always has a4 themes to break open that queenside flank. So, David, I tend to like these positions from the white side. I feel like there are many different directions you could take the game. And you see Jan at the moment thinking, how do I actually respond here? Because the knight on b4 can get kicked first with pawn to a3. So black's pieces look active, but they also can be booted backwards.
That's right. It's all about this bishop, and I think that's why so many players at the top level play the Catalan opening these days, Robert. It's so in fashion, all levels, all players of kind of differing styles. They play it because there's tactics, there's calculation to be done, but there's also a solid foundation, a positional foundation for white to play with. No matter how much I study the black side of the Catalan, I just never know how to equalize. It's so frustrating. And I think that's the same for Jan Nepomniachtchi here. Computer says, nah, nothing to worry about, but we already start to see the outline of some potential danger. Like you said, a pawn potentially dropping, and whoa, he tries to solve his problems tactically here, Robert. This is not a blunder, not a mouse slip. Queen takes bishop would walk into a nasty knight fork. So, okay, creative stuff.
That is a fantastic try, I must say, because I was not looking at that move at all. As you mentioned, you can't take the bishop, you lose your queen on the spot. So now white has to make a choice, and that's the good news for Jan. Even if white might be slightly better, you are forcing Magnus to clarify the position. That knight on e5, right, it just was sitting there, was that looming threat of knight takes bishop on d7. Now you kind of have to make that decision. Taking on d7, black takes back with the queen, and you see more coordination from the black pieces, and the queen already defends that bishop on d4. So I'm a big fan of this last move from Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jan Nepomniachtchi in general. Just a fantastic play. He always defends actively if he can. I think a good tip for everyone at home, if you can defend with tactics, if you can defend while creating your own threats, that's the best way. Going passive rarely works at any level. Maybe we zoom out here. Magnus is about to castle his king. Both sides are probably going to castle, and the kind of clash will rage on. In the meantime, Robert, which other boards catch your eye?
Well, I'm looking at the bottom right. The other games are interesting, but something happening on the bottom right is confusing to me because I see a knight on the rim, and then the move that we just saw, black stopped white's threat, and the knight moved back towards the center. So it was an odd series of moves, I guess, from white to induce a weakness. And I'm curious, does it actually do much of anything for Arjun? He went knight h4, black played g6, and he immediately dropped that knight right back to f3.
Yeah, let's jump in and do a bit of an action replay because, like you said, Robert, curious stuff. I think if I had done this when I was young, a coach would have told me off quite strongly for wasting time, wasting tempi. But this is the idea. Let's just quickly show this. Black here has castled. White's castled on the opposite flank. Normally, white, therefore, wants to pawn storm the black king. And likewise, black will try some action on the queen side against the white monarch. But knight h4, trying to jump into the magical f5 square, prevented, and knight back, 2 whole tempi, but this is the idea, and pawn to h4. I mean, I joked about it earlier, but everyone's obsessed with this, Robert. Pawn to h4, he's now created a hook at least, a kind of battering ram kind of effect by the h-pawn, trying to open up the h-line, probably at the cost of material for the white pieces. What do you make of it? Is this just too contrived, or is this just genius?
What I make of it is when I commentate, I'm like, what is white doing? But when I'm playing against it, I'm scared. I'm like, that h4, h5 idea, it happens before you know it. So black needs to get started over there on the queen side. So how do you actually do that? Grischuk says, not yet. Come on, young fella. I'm going to first stop your immediate plan. I know it looks like the g6 pawn is a bit tender, but if you step your knight forward to e5, I'm not just going to allow you to sacrifice on g6 next. I'm going to see that coming, and there are many moves for black there, including a knight trade, king to g7, if you want to just keep the tension there. But David, I feel like Grischuk, he's just handling his business right now. When someone wastes time against you, you see their exact threat. He says, I'm going to put an end to that, and only later will I think about c6 to c5, or pawn a5, pawn a4, things of that nature, because he feels like he's got everything under control on the king side.
Yeah, very classy player, Alexander Grischuk. And okay, knight g5 has landed. It's still a bit scary, I've got to say. f3, g4 might blow open the king side. e4 at some point might blow open the center. But yeah, Grischuk, I've always admired him just because I kind of felt that we had similar styles in a way. He very much likes to focus on outplaying his opponent strategically in the middle games. He's happy to burn time in the process. He really kind of backs his technique later in the game. Now he's aiming to remove this knight. He's kind of indirectly attacking the a2 pawn. But yeah, it still feels like the kind of position that could spiral out of control for either side if they're not careful. And okay, I'm expecting a move like king to b1. That's conventional wisdom, right, Robert? Just if you castle on the long side, slide your king closer to the corner. It tends to be slightly safer there. But talking of spiraling out of control, my eyes are drawn elsewhere. What do you think? Should we stay? Should we move?
Shall we say or shall we go? I think you know the answer. Let's go back to our four-board view because all matches are getting spicy. And David, I'll let you say it out loud, but I know exactly where you want to take this.
I just saw a queen pop up near a black king. Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi. I should mention in the meantime, it looks like Levon Aronian is a pawn up in a rook endgame against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, so some pressure there, but still a likely draw. But this one, yeah, let's go to the world number one, Robert. Why not? Hopefully nobody blames me for that. And okay, it looked like a rook was going to get trapped in the corner, the black knight sitting on c2, but surely the black king isn't feeling too safe right now.
How could it? There's a queen on h6, but for the moment at least, after the bishop landed on d4 long ago, that bishop can slide back to g7. So one of the questions I have for you, David, is bishop g5 for white a good idea? Should you induce f6? I know that seems like it kicks that bishop out. Why am I wasting time? But it could create further weaknesses in the heart of black's king side. So it's not always easy to know when to induce a move like f6. What's your take in this position?
You've been watching too many Arjun Erigaisi games, Robert. Tempi. I mean, who needs two moves? Induce the weakness, drop back to f4 or drop back to h4 and just laugh. But okay, Magnus goes a different direction. He's aiming to crack open a new diagonal for the white bishop. I don't think black should get tempted to take that pawn in the center. He drops his bishop back instead. The white bishop would have been too strong on e4, staring at the black knight, staring at the h7 pawn. But still questions to be answered here. And bishop g5 still in the air, so he's keeping that ace up his sleeve, I guess. Robert, I'm going to say white's position looks beautiful here. Do you think here Jan is going to be able to hold? Is he going to be able to get those queens off at some point, maybe?
I think he was relying on some kind of knight d4 move here, where like e takes f5, knight takes f5. Your pawn structure looks actually improved compared to having double pawns, but white can still just sit a bishop on e4. And as they often say, the threat is stronger than the execution. So he has taken, but that only welcomes that bishop to e4, hitting h7, which isn't immediately a checkmate, but that's bad news for black. So I think Jan's going to play f5 and try to defend actively, but there must be something here for white, especially because there's a light square bishop, and then bishop g5 at any moment could catch you off guard.
Oh yeah, I can tell Magnus is actually thinking about bishop g5 already. Suddenly f6, there might be some tactics in the air there, some sacrifices, but yeah, why else would you refrain from capturing a pawn in the center, threatening all sorts of kind of attacking ideas? Just trying to look into the future, maybe Magnus a bit down on the clock. It feels like this is his game to get. Nepomniachtchi would love to survive this one, move back to the white pieces. It looks like he's been under pressure the whole time. Predictions, is Magnus going to get this game?
It looks too tough for black. The good thing for Jan is his time. He's actually 2 minutes ahead. It's getting tactical, and if Magnus doesn't capitalize in the moment, and he did just take on e4, right, black's last few moves have been kind of obvious for Jan. He's playing for one specific plan, stop my king from getting checkmated, and he does have a lot of activity. So if I'm Magnus, I think now I take this knight on c2, put a rook on d1, and just try to remove as many of black's defenders as possible because, and this has happened, the black king is still open, and watch out for some back rank checkmate ideas.
Yeah, there's not going to be safety while the queens remain on the board, and really classy move there. I've got to say, Robert, spotted by you, spotted by Magnus there. I'm just a materialist. I would have been like, oh no, I'm dropping my queenside pawns. But of course, there was too much danger. The black rook has to readopt a defensive position. And now Magnus changes path here. He looks at this b5 pawn, the e6 pawn a bit weak. I'm wondering whether there'll be some deflection tactics later with bishop g5. It's scary, scary times for Jan Nepomniachtchi still, but it's not over. And the main difference, as you mentioned, especially when heavy pieces are on the board, queens, rooks, it's king safety, and okay, still some pressure against the backward e6 pawn.
It's the frustrating thing about playing Magnus. You survive the attack, and then you get to an endgame where you're slightly worse than have to grovel for a draw. That e6 pawn's a problem. The king is still open. As you said, h4, h5 for white at any possible moment could be useful as well. a4 over there on the queen side, just saying, hey, look out, your a6 pawn might drop, and then I might win both of your queenside pawns. So black is active. The bishop on g7 is good. The queen on e7 is a good defender. It just feels like white suddenly has an easier time of it now that some pieces have come off the board.
Yeah, this is classic Magnus. No matter how few pieces remain, he's always setting up these threats. He's always kind of asking questions, forcing the opponent to be accurate. And rook e8, maybe not the most accurate move. Now black's piece is passive, and he does remove the black king's best defender. A trade of bishops does not guarantee safety. If you could get the queens off the board, then I would say draw, most likely. But while queens remain, Magnus remains in charge. And okay, should we zoom out for now? This is promising to be a long game, Robert.
Let's do it, because the other three matchups, some look like they're going to come to a conclusion. And as I say that, Fedoseev and Firouzja have made a draw. That's really good for Alireza. He gets a draw with black after winning with white. He now only needs one more win to take this match. But as you look at the other games here, Levon Aronian, he is trying to work that endgame magic. And to my eyes, Dave, in the top left, those rooks can be very dangerous for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave's king to deal with.
That's right. We talk about king safety with queens on the board, but also when it's two pairs of rooks, there's all sorts of checkmating patterns. If white could just teleport here, just wave the magic wand and pick up the white rook on g3, put it anywhere on the back rank, that's a lawnmower checkmate. But for now, the white rook is tied down defending pawn in front of its own king. Okay, he plays e5. I was more expecting h5, Robert, just because it felt like you'd set up a pin anyway on the black king, but Okay, maybe he's hoping to use the e-pawn as a distraction as soon as the black rook ever moves. This idea of swinging in and behind is going to be painful. Yeah, this one, eval bar, deceptive. I've got to agree with you. It's only black who's struggling to make the draw here.
Oh, if we were playing this game just like the previous one, if I had the black pieces, I'd be like, I think I'm in huge trouble because the g2 pawn is keeping the white rook on g3 tied down. But there will be a time and place where rook g3 to d3 is the best move. You take the pawn g2 a check, and I just run my king to the center, and I have all sorts of threats against the black king, and the black rook may have to slide back to the last rank. So this is, oh, you see the move b5. The engine doesn't love it. David, what is the punishing move from the white side? Is it h5, or is it just keep pushing the e-pawn?
Oh, they both look tempting, I've got to say, Robert. I don't see why immediately that might have been a mistake. Maybe pushing the e-pawn was better because it would have kept the black king fixed. With the pawn on e6, you would have always had rook f7 check ideas, and the black king would have been in a bit of trouble. Now it might be harder to pin down this black king. Rook takes e5 at some point. The black rook might come back to defend. But okay, he's still a pawn to the good here. Levon Aronian, 3 versus 2 now. But the checkmating patterns have disappeared. Maybe it's time for the black king to run in the near future. I'm still taking white here every day, though. It's like you said, practical value. He's kept things safe. He's still going to be able to set these problems for Maxime a bit later on.
And it's all about the consequences. You know, if white makes a mistake, the game just ends in a draw. If black makes one error, you might just be lost in the spot. So it's just so much easier to play these positions from the white side. And Levon, he is such a great endgame player, but so is Maxime. And look at Maxime saying, you know what, your e5 pawn, all that, you can keep it for now. I'm going to try to distract you, create a pass pawn on my own. And white needs to try to get that black king in a mating net. If that's not going to happen, then white should not really have much in the way of winning chances.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful, and Maxime is careful. I think allowing a pawn to e6 there would have ended in all sorts of checkmating patterns. A white rook landing on f7, trapping the black king and kind of forcing it away. Suddenly, he's trying to round up this pawn, and like you said, the a-pawn as a distraction is going to force one of the white rooks to commit and move away. I think he might be running out of ammunition here, Levon Aronian. He's trying, though. He's going to slide his rook back, maybe, and try the lawnmower again from a different side of the board.
Okay, first of all, amazing technique from Maxime to put his king on the rim like this. I would have been way too scared to do that. I would have kept my king in the center. But he understands that if rook f4 or rook f3 doesn't matter, he's going to put his own rook next to the white rook and say, you're not going to checkmate me, and we are going to trade rooks whether you like it or not. So without one pair of rooks here, the black queenside pawn will be so dangerous that white will have to give up the e-pawn for one of the queenside pawns, and then we get mass liquidation and quite a straightforward draw. So props to Maxime. This was a hard find.
Yeah, really hard find. Really counterintuitive, as you say there. But he's so good in the endgame, as you mentioned, Robert. I don't think I've seen as many players just outplay their opponents in the endgame as Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, especially when it's just rooks or just minor pieces. Yeah, first instinct, I thought this is checkmate. But as you say, the black rooks chase the white rooks, and no way to build that bridge, to build that checkmating pattern. And Levon's running out of time, running out of material. If it's kind of a trade of one set of rooks, if white's only left with a g-pawn, as you say, it's an elementary draw. There's no way forward. I think we can almost call it now. Vachier-Lagrave, he's found all the solutions to all of the questions. This one is heading towards a draw.
Yeah, we'd be surprised if there's any different result. Let's zoom out of this game because action is heating up on the others. And yeah, we see rook f4, rook e4 about to be played. But look what's happening with Magnus Carlsen in the top right. And while we look there, in the bottom right, Grischuk has 5 seconds remaining. So Magnus has been able to break through. It looks like Grischuk is also in trouble because he's got no time. 5 seconds to 5 minutes, David.
Ooh, maybe we go there because he might not last much longer, Alexander Grischuk. Magnus still needs to find a breakthrough to the black king. He's almost paralyzed Nepomniachtchi's pieces, but still some work to be done. Wow, where's the knockout blow, Robert? The black king is gonna get hit from every angle. I'm not sure where you go. Either way, white's knight just maybe the best piece on the board, dominant right now, and he's trying to close the cage.
Did Arjun just pre-move that? I think he was expecting king d6, and I couldn't tell, but he still is winning. f6 is about to drop. But is the white rook trapped over there?
Oh, wait. Arjun Erigaisi rushing, and, careful. The rook is trapped.
The good news is he's got 4 minutes and change to think about how to save that rook. The bad news for Grischuk is while he may be holding on the board, he still has 3 seconds. The 2-second increment is only so valuable when the position remains this complicated.
Ooh, he takes a pawn, Arjun, here, and he saves his rook by trickery of the meanest kind, and he wins on time.
Yeah,
Grischuk
you see Grischuk.
out of time.
You know, he's always like, how? How did I lose on time? And he's always in time trouble. So that's really how. But, I mean, you could tell, David, that Arjun was just pressing him on the clock more so than the board at that point.
That's right. And a winning position ultimately for Arjun still. If the rook disappears, the black rook disappears as well, and white would remain a pawn to the good. Let's jump over to Magnus Carlsen as he aims to put the finishing touches to his game against Jan Nepomniachtchi. Ooh, 30 seconds against 1 minute. Black seeking counterplay here, Robert, but any check to the black king is going to be fatal. How does the white queen find her way to this diagonal? Not easy. Still not easy.
There are many ways to go wrong for white. Like queen d6, you're threatening that check on the diagonal. But even there, after the queen gets to d3, black has pawn to e4, just stopping your immediate threat. So f takes g3 is a pretty serious threat from the black side. And the question becomes, David, what rook endgames will be giving white good winning chances? What immediately goes to a draw? And, oh, speaking of rook endgame, why did Magnus just do that so quickly?
He's bailed out to a drawn endgame where he's not even going to be a pawn up. Okay, maybe he's going to remain a pawn up. I thought the black king would come and snack on this f4 pawn, but for now, Magnus has this extra material, and it really reminds me of a game he had at the Olympiad against Parham Maghsoodloo, where it kind of fizzled out to this rook endgame, and black just has enough counterplay. The white rook not able to hold everything together, and the white king really passive. We said it, Robert, it's not that easy. The winning method was difficult. He needed to keep the tension, but queen's off the board and all rook endgames are drawn. That's what they say.
And it was voluntarily. He traded the queens on his own terms, but he probably was worried about his clock management. And here, you know, white can go king e3, rook e5, try to just corral this central pawn. But the problem for white is those are double isolated pawns. You don't have pawns that can help each other move forward. They're just stuck in place here. So keeping the rooks on the board, this should be a relatively easy endgame for Nepo. But David, how many times have we said should be a draw, but Magnus Carlsen's involved and he somehow wins?
That's right. We shouldn't jump to conclusions too soon. This is a dead draw. I've had this. I'm sure you've had something similar in your career, Robert. The problem is, as you mentioned, just cannot break through past the black king with these doubled f pawns. And ultimately, as soon as the white rook moves away, the black king blockades. As soon as you give a check, you might be vulnerable to checks yourself. And Jan Nepomniachtchi pretty much smiling on the camera. He knows how to draw. And yeah, Magnus isn't going to work miracles, isn't going to squeeze water out of this stone.
As long as, you know, the rooks don't get in the same line and one of them blunders that, it just is a very straightforward draw. As you said, the black rook will always check if the white king steps forward, and now black's king is actually in the optimal position. So this is very easy for Jan Nepomniachtchi, and I don't think there's anything to even take for granted in this. He just keeps chuckling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he studied this one before, Jan Nepomniachtchi. He knows Magnus is just playing on to test him. But he's up for the challenge, and now the white king has nowhere to hide. He's going to get driven all the way back. And yeah, unfortunately, the white rook just stuck with its pawns. And huge missed opportunity, Robert. You've got to say, Magnus, he dominated this game. He played extremely well, model game almost, until the winning technique was required.
Did you see Magnus? He's like, why didn't you take my rook there, which would have been an immediate draw. But Nepo shakes his head. He knows that he got away with one. But sometimes that's all you need in the Champions Chess Tour, David, is to survive a game like that. With only 2 games to go in this match, that means that Jan definitely has a good chance to upset Magnus Carlsen.
That's right. The closer it gets and the more games that are just kind of out of the way, the more it becomes a bit random, a bit of a shootout. And if it comes down to just one game, Jan Nepomniachtchi's chances definitely rise. So great result for him there, great save. And yeah, Magnus frustrated. You can see it on the camera.
Yeah, he's reviewing his game, and he sees now that he missed some good opportunities to win. So 2 draws in this matchup, it's 1-1. And it's not the only matchup that is 1 game apiece. But for for Magnus. Look at him. He's still just beside himself. And David, you know Magnus super well. When he misses something, even if it's a little thing here or there, he wants that perfection from his own play.
Exactly. He demands the kind of the most from himself. He's his own harshest critic. But Magnus, despite the fact he might be feeling frustrated, distraught, annoyed, he is also an expert at just forgetting, moving on to the next game. And here we see the scores, Robert. It was so close for Magnus, but ultimately still level, and he's got to reset and go again.
Well, somebody who was able to reset and now is even is Arjun. He sets it at 1-1 after losing the first game. So Alexander Grischuk will need to find better form. And then Maxime Vachier-Lagrave held nicely with black. Alireza Firouzja did the same. So the Frenchmen, they both have a 1.5 lead and white in the next game. So David, they can put this match away.
That's right. They look like favorites. They look like they've been in control. Levon Aronian, that last game, got close, tried everything he could, but Maxime had all the answers. And yeah, if anyone is the favorite in any of these quarterfinals, it's got to be the two French players right now. But in the meantime, Robert, as we wait for the next game to start, I just wanted to show maybe the highlights of that clash between Arjun Erigaisi and Alexander Grischuk, where after a very balanced opening, very balanced middle game, it started as a Queen's Gambit declined, we found ourselves in a really unorthodox endgame. We see the white king sitting out on the queen's side, about to be hit by some pawns, but controlling things for now. And we see two runaway white pawns, just as we saw actually from Firouzja earlier in the day. The difference being that this e-pawn is stuck for white right now. Under lock and key, the black knight controls the e5 square. Let's see how, though, Erigaisi was able to get into the black position and sneak behind enemy lines. Rook to a2 was the start, attacking this pawn. And black here started to go astray. Alexander Grischuk, as is his custom, was already under 20 seconds at this point. Knight to e5, a mistake, allowing a pawn to drop. His idea was to take this d pawn, now that he's blocked the diagonal of the white bishop. But it's more important that the white rooks gain access to the open lines. And suddenly another kind of inaccurate knight jump, a check from behind. Here, rook to h8. A brilliant move from Arjun Erigaisi. Given an exclamation mark, he's aiming simply to get behind with his other rook, and that would be a nasty checkmate on the h7 square. Grischuk defended as best he could with no time on the clock. Arjun here on the brink of victory, however, didn't wrap things up in the best way. Bishop takes knight here would have knocked out Grischuk immediately due to a nasty knight check landing. Rook takes bishop, walks into a fork, and pawn takes on e5 instead would also walk into a check. If you go back, you're simply going to get checkmated or have to lose a piece. If you step forward instead, you walk into the firing line, and knight d8 check would have picked up the black knight. Arjun didn't convert in the most efficient way, but it was the clock that came back to bite Grischuk. The white rook was trapped, but knight to e6 the key, and Grischuk here, in panic, wasn't able to continue the game. If he'd taken the rook, maybe some drawing chances, but Arjun, the favourite still. And he strikes back, Robert, 1-1, the current score.
In what feels like forever, he immediately recovers, and that was a great summary of the action there, David. So the players, they get their rest. I think everybody who is watching, you should take a little bit of rest yourself, because when we get back, it's the second half of these matches here in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some tea. I'm going to go review some of those games, because Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he's in the driver's seat. Magnus Carlsen could have been, but we know that Alireza and Maxime are in the lead. The other two matches are tied. We'll be back in just a few for more from the Julius Baer Generation Cup here in the Champions Chess Tour.
Levon Aronian has been one of the world's strongest players for almost 2 decades. The 41-year-old has won numerous major tournaments, achieved the 4th highest rating in history, and consistently been ranked among the world's top 5 players. Thanks to his imaginative and aggressive play, in addition to his witty personality and good sense of humor, Aronian has also become a fan favorite across the chess world. However, in the Champions Chess Tour, he has yet to fully showcase his immense capabilities, sometimes coming up short against the younger generation of elite players. This time, Aronian faces the daunting task of competing against a new wave of prodigious talents, many of whom are less than half his age. The question remains, can his wealth of experience and profound understanding of the game help him prevail over the dynamic and innovative strategies of his younger rivals?
If you have kids, would you teach them chess and would you encourage them to go into a career in chess?
I would teach my kids chess, but I would not encourage them to play professionally.
So he's not sure about that.
Okay. Well, why wouldn't you encourage them to play professionally?
I think becoming one of the best chess players in the world is not easy. There are other areas where you can be worse at something and have an easier life.
Do you feel you're the best looking chess player in the world, top 100?
No.
He is telling the truth.
Do you think you're the best looking chess player in this room?
No.
So he's telling the truth, but it's more or less that he doesn't really care.
Fair enough. Thanks for the compliment there.
Looking to deck out your closet this fall, or a gift for that person who loves chess? We've got you covered in our all-new merch store. Literally. Never forget that it's always chess o'clock somewhere, with clocks in a brand new colorway. And keep your mouse speed on point with a classic green or bubblegum pink mouse pad. Oh, Middens wants to say something too. She says, check it all out at chess.com/shop. And yeah, you might want to do what Middens says.
Chess with friends is fun, and Discord is your place to talk with friends. This month only, Discord is joining forces with chess.com. Win a game against Wumpus, Nelly, or Clyde, and you'll win a free month of Discord Nitro. And watch out for a super secret opponent later in the month. Play them all only on chess.com.
Welcome back to the Julius Baer Generation Cup. This is the winter quarterfinals of the top division. I'm Robert Hess. Alongside me is Grandmaster David Howell. David, thus far we have two tied matches, where one side leads, Maxime and Alireza, 1.5. What quick advice would you give to the players who are trailing?
Oof. Play faster, play better, try different things, and they've got to take some risks now. It's hard to give advice when you're facing one of the best players in the world, but they still have time, and there's plenty on the line.
Oh, I like the rhyme there. And for those players, they may not have much time. This is the fourth and final event of the Champions Chess Tour. Let's see who has the legitimate shot to make it through to the Oslo finals in December. And we see Magnus Carlsen. He won the CrunchLabs Masters. Alireza Firouzja, he took down the Chess.com Classic. And David, you had the call for the CrunchLabs Masters where Maxime Vachier-Lagrave took it. And Jan Nepomniachtchi, he didn't win an event, but he has qualified via the Tour Finals. And we see that these names here, look at what they have to do. For Arjun, he's got no choice but to win this if he wants to control his own destiny. But for these players, they are just trying to stave off elimination to give themselves a shot. You see that Jan Duda, He's all the way in the 3rd division, and he needs 4th place there, where we know it's tough. Fabiano Caruana resides in the 3rd division just to stay alive.
That's right, huge bracket over there in Division 2 and Division 3, so nothing guaranteed, even for super strong players of the likes of Vidit and Duda there. For those in Division 1 with us here today, they do have 2 lives, so nothing will be determined by today's match, but they do not want to live life on the edge. They do not want to live life on the brink. And Robert, I think we will start to see some desperation from the players as the event goes on. So much to play for. Money, but also that opportunity to be here in Oslo in a couple of months.
And as we just looked at, some of the players, they really need a top-level performance just to give themselves a chance to make to the finals based on the leaderboard points. So here we have another French, and for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he's happy. He's already qualified for Oslo. For Levon, he needs to keep on going, and he does not want to continue in the loser's bracket. He wants to even up this match score. David, do you like the decision to go back to the French defense for Levon?
Oof, yes and no, Robert. I don't like it because it is a French defense, and I don't really feel it suits Levon Aronian's strengths. I feel that he does better when he's got the space, the center, when he's the one creating the dynamism. But I also like the fact he is trying to experiment. He is kind of pushing himself and potentially the opponent outside the comfort zone. And we do see a different spin on the French this time. It's the advanced variation. Credit to Maxime as well for not playing the safest, kind of most solid lines necessarily against the French, even when he's ahead in the match. It's the advanced variation, and look at the black pawns. They're split. White has a nice kind of outpost now on the d4 square. Do not take that e-pawn. You would have walked into a nasty pin on the e-file. So yeah, I'm undecided, I've got to say. But what do you make of the results of the opening here as we enter what will be the early middle game once Black castles?
I think Levon can be happy. He's got a slight lead on the clock at the moment. There are going to be some questions asked if these pair of bishops will be useful for Black, or that split pawn structure, as you mentioned, if that's going to be harmful. So this is one of those positions where it's actually completely unclear who should be the happier of the two. And I'm wondering now, is e6 a possibility for Maxime, or does that trade off too many pieces?
Ooh, that's a good question, Robert. I think it's the first thing anyone should calculate, because it is the most forcing move. If it works, you might improve your pawn structure, you might get rid of Black's bishop pair, but some calculation to be done. It does cost a lot of time. I think I would have been very tempted to play that move, but ultimately Maxime goes in a different direction. Now he's shattered his own pawns, so the white queen side, not too appealing, you've got to say. Targets for rooks, knights later in the game. Opposite color bishops now putting a safer spin on things maybe, but I agree, Robert. Black has nothing at all to be concerned about. Big success, I think, this French defense for once for Aronian.
And coaches should not show their students this game, because this is some of the worst pawns you could ask for this early on. Double F pawns, isolated D pawn, double A and isolated C pawn for white. So this is not what you draw up in the playbook. But as we are here, as we get to this position, opposite colored bishops does not mean immediate draw. What white wants to do is get a queen to G3, get a bishop to either f6 or h6, and go for checkmate on those dark squares. So we can understand the direction that white wants to go, and the essential claim is that, okay, I don't like that move, but I was about to say the essential claim was that Black's bishop was quite passive, but after knight f3, David, it does feel like now Black should be the side for choice, because there will not be any checkmating threats from the white side, and Black does have the better pawn structure.
That's right. There's an attack on the Black d-pawn, but even letting that one fall might be a way to free up the Black bishop in the near future. These opposite color bishop positions, as you mentioned, plenty of life left, and it's all about whose bishop can become more active. Moves that come to my mind: queen to a5 to defend the d-pawn, but also keeping an eye on this target on c3. Maybe even rook to c8, but okay, he does move his queen away. He's saying, please take me, because the Black bishop will soon become a superior piece. Levon Aronian, I think this is his chance to strike back in the match.
And for these top players, they do not mind giving up a little bit of material, in this case a pawn, to get all the activity, right? Black will get a tempo after tempo, and white needs to be careful. So Maxime's thinking about it, because if he can take on d5 and then say, like, play queen d6 next and just trade off all these pieces, it might be worth going for. His pawn structure is compromised. And if he doesn't take there, what other moves come to mind? Bishop g5 to attack a queen, but the Black queen will then win that a3 pawn. So you attack a queen, good for you. You drop material.
Yeah, and ultimately, rather neutral move, I've got to say. Rook to b1. He's hitting a pawn, yes, but that pawn might just move. There we go, b6. And I guess the idea is to take here on d5 now, that the black bishop has to stay defending its knight, but it feels a bit superficial for white, for Maxime, I've got to say. The pawn structure, I just can't take my eyes off it. Maybe we should take our eyes off it, Robert, and move on, move out to the bird's eye view, because yes, Maxime's a pawn up right now, but he holds all the weaknesses in the position.
He does indeed. It's a good call by you to change games, because look what's happening between Magnus and Jan Nepomniachtchi. There's been some intermezzos there. You see a check against Jan's king, and we also see the evaluation bar in black's favor. And while there are many pieces hanging, so let's dive into the details here, because Jan is on the clock and he may be in some trouble.
Wow, this is this looks familiar. I'm not sure if I've looked at this exact position or just something very similar, but some crazy tactics early in this game. Jan frowning, as you mentioned. He finds the only move. The blue arrow appeared. White had to step out of that check, had to defend it, the bishop on e3, so the white king doing all the work there. Black takes back. Again, blue arrow appears because black's bishop needed to open up the diagonal. Now, pawn takes knight would be a huge blunder by Jan Nepomniachtchi. Bishop to g4 check would win the white queen. You mentioned the trouble on the horizon, especially if you don't know what you're doing. A frown on the face of Jan Nepomniachtchi. You might just be 2 pawns down with a weak king. So time is of the essence. There are other tempting moves. Bishop to d4. The question is, does that actually threaten anything?
No.
Robert, this is crazy.
But I love these lines, right? Bishop d4, black plays pawn to e5. Take my queen, why don't you? Because after the knight takes back on c3, that's a fork. So bishop d4 is the obvious move. You play it, you think you win material, but in fact you actually just trade queens in an unorthodox manner, and black has 2 pawns to the good. So Jan seems to have gone wrong here. I don't know the ins and outs of the opening, David, but who wants their king on e2 like this, and then to be the one using your time?
Yeah, I think maybe a quick action replay while all of the games are quite early on in their development. Let's just jump in and show how Magnus did potentially trick Jan Nepomniachtchi. I'll go from the start because we're not that far into this game. It was a accelerated dragon, I believe, where black tries to fianchetto the bishop. We saw the center open up. White defends the knight on d4. Black knight comes out, and queen to a5, a very tricky move. And f3, queen to b4. So very early kind of blitz attack against the white pieces. And bishop to b3, a big mistake apparently because of this move. Knight takes e4, opening up the black bishop to hit this knight on d4. If you take on e4, d4 falls and you're simply a pawn down. So you've already burnt your bridges here. Knight takes c6, and maybe Jan had miscalculated something. Maybe he kind of only sensed the danger a bit too late, and he's played the move rook to e1. So this is the current position. Oh, sorry. If we go here, the current position, rook to e1. There we go. Bit of a tech slip up there. My bad. I'm such a boomer. But rook to e1. And Robert, still no threat.
I thought you were just showing us the instant replay because it was that instructive. This is one of those odd openings by Magnus where he took Jan out of theory and Jan didn't know what to do. But we're here now. White is 2 pawns down. Black's king, can it safely castle? That's a big question. And white is going to slide the king back to f1. And that rook on e1 will be very useful to go after the e7 pawn in many different positions. Let's not just pretend that once black castles, the king is safe. There will be bishop h6 at the right moment. The dark squares are compromised. So I look at this position, Magnus was the one who gained the upper hand out of the opening. Is there a move here, like a queen back somewhere, to open up knight c3 check just to trade more pieces?
Whoa, you called the right idea, Robert, but queen takes b3. He doesn't slide the queen back. He gets her out of the way. Queen sacrifice by Magnus temporarily to land this knight fork, and forcibly getting the queens off the board is going to be level pieces at the end of all of this, but black will still have 2 extra pawns. And the big question is now, do you take this knight on d1 and allow black to maybe save the a7 pawn? Oof, Magnus is going to be trying to grind out an endgame either way, Robert.
Rook takes a7 is a move just played as soon as I was going to mention it. The knight is trapped, so it can go to b2 after the swap on a7, but then the king can go to c3 or bishop to d4, and the knight will be lost. So it's only going to be 1 extra pawn for black. It's bishops of opposite color. Magnus will push this, and he might even win it, but there are still, of course, chances here for Jan to hold. But I'm sorry, David. I know this game has been interesting. We're getting to an endgame. I have to zoom us out, because as I look at some of the other games, there is one in particular that is all sorts of hectic. Look in the bottom right of our screen here. Alexander Grischuk is up a piece for just 2 pawns, but his king is wide open on g2. So does Arjun have enough in terms of firepower to land a vicious attack against the white king, or is the extra material going to dictate the result of this game?
Wow, I just wish I had Arjun Erigai's courage, his just kind of lust for battle, just the way he plays. It's like he's in a must-win situation every single game. Does he not realize he's already equalized? He doesn't need to win with black, but he's gone all out. And yes, it might backfire. Yes, white is a piece up. I just want to rewind and show everyone again how that happened. Not to the start this time, but now the position clarifying. The white bishop is going to take this pawn, hitting the black queen. Development only helping white, but it was here in this position. Black could just take a knight. This is a pin. Could just take the knight in f3, very level type of position. He dropped back instead, and as far as I believe, this is opening theory, but g4 now forcing black to sacrifice. If you go back, you simply lose a pawn for insufficient compensation. So black sacrifices simply to maintain this pin, and this is how we got the material kind of imbalance here. So if we catch up with the game position, Robert, still some threats. Rook f6 is a nasty one, threatening rook g6 with this nasty pin. I wonder whether the white king just slides back. Safe haven on h1, I ask, in not too much confidence. But yeah, it's only a piece for 2 pawns right now. It might not be enough.
And I think this theoretical sacrifice that we saw, it's hard to follow up accurately if you haven't studied it recently. So, I mean, Arjun castled and then went like f5. So he's trying to break open the position. Maybe there was something a little bit more direct. I will not pretend like I know the lines in this opening. But now that we're here and e takes f5 was just played, I think it's quite clear that white is for choice. Black doesn't have a threat. Rook g6 was the idea, but the rook was forced to step forward. And now white bringing another piece to the king's defense. This looks like Grischuk, with the white pieces, he has figured Arjun out. Like, he knows what openings to go down, and Arjun, he's struggled to actually get off to a good start with black. And he sacked a piece, and then immediately is worse. In game 1, he had this ruined pawn structure. Something is wrong here for Arjun against Alexander Grischuk. It might just be the Grischuk specialty that we're seeing unleashed.
Yeah, that's right. We've seen 2 Roy Lopez games from Grischuk, 2 Spanish openings, and 2 winning positions after just 15 moves. So Arjun maybe needs to go for the Scandinavian or whatever he's been doing to kind of lure his opponent outside of their comfort zones early in games, because against a classically trained player like Grischuk, it's just not it's not ticking into gear right now. The white bishop feels slightly awkward along this diagonal. I would be tempted to move it. I'm not sure where. E3 deep back, maybe even E5 threaten checkmate, but. Yeah, the more pieces that disappear, the safer white's king will become, and the closer he'll get to victory. Knight's your king's best friend, Robert, and he's got plenty of friends around that king defending. Grischuk, a matter of technique, but 4 minutes on the clock. I guess we'll keep repeating that.
Yeah, and I see the feature chat there. Grischuk will use all his time, but as you said, he's got 4 minutes, not 4 seconds this game. So unlike the last one, and bishop takes c7, that is a brave move, but he recognizes that Arjun has no threats. You need a rook to get to the g file. The knight on e4 covers g5. Rook trades help white. We are seeing pieces get traded off the board now, but I like how Arjun's playing queen d4, quickly trying to threaten the b2 pawn, trying to keep Grischuk on the clock, but even move pawn to c3. That feels good enough for white, just trying to protect the single move threats that Arjun is going for. So let's zoom out of this game. We will come back, of course, if things heat up even more, but it does seem like for Grischuk, he's got everything covered. What do you make of what's happening elsewhere? I see the eval bar going down in black's favor on the left-hand side, both for Fedoseev slightly and for Levon Aronian.
Yeah, it looks like a good round for those with the black pieces, apart from Arjun Erigaici right now. Magnus still a pawn to the good. I think we jump into that game with Levon Aronian because pieces are flying off that board. Vladimir Fedoseev's advantage is just small. It's in a middle game there. And here, this is vital for Aronian. He needs to get this game. The blue arrow has appeared. Robert, I'm doing a quick count. It's 1 extra pawn for black right now. 3 versus 3 on the king side. But on the queen side, he's 2-1 up. And opposite color bishops we mentioned doesn't guarantee a draw. Especially with knights on the board, but can he convert this? The a4 pawn is dropping, but the a7 pawn currently attacked. It feels close. Or the white knight's going to have to sideline itself, and he closes the cage. The white knight is trapped. No way out. Surely he's going to take this, Aronian.
How is this anywhere close to level. I look at this position and I just assume black is winning because that knight is trapped over there, but it's actually impossible to attack it. Where is the black king going to enter from, right? To get to that knight, you'd have to get your king to b7, but c8, c7, and c6 are all covered by white's pieces. So perhaps, even though it looks terrible, white is still in this game because you might have to push the b pawn, but your bishop is tied down to d7. Otherwise, you let that knight in the game, and the knight should come to d5 for black. Of course, don't trade those knights. That would make white's life of making a draw easy. But David, how does black proceed from here? It looks so good, and yet the evaluation is hardly impressed.
Yeah, chess is just, I mean, it's the most beautiful game ever, but it can just be the worst sometimes, Robert. You do everything right. You trap your opponent's knight, knights on the rim are dim, all that. You're a pawn up. What more can you ask for? And still no guarantee of a win. I do wonder whether you can use the black king, kind of bring it forward, kind of fix white's pawns or tie down the white pawns, white king potentially, and then use the b pawn as a distraction. He kind of fixes the king side now. I was skeptical about this because you just allow white to trade more pawns off. The more pawns that disappear, the closer white gets to safety. But yeah, it's unclear the right path. I think he just has to make moves, Levon, and hope that an opportunity comes later to maybe just sprint down the board with his b pawn while the white king is distracted. But yeah, I would have, I mean, if you show me this position without an eval bar, I would have said black wins 10 times out of 10. So it is confusing, and maybe confusing for the players too.
Even with the evaluation bar, I still think black is winning this game. I almost want to disregard it because, as you mentioned, the b pawn, b5, b4, that's unstoppable, right? You have to allow that from the white side. And the king will have to sprint on over to the c file to stop that pawn at some point. And look at black's king, just venturing forward. So I'm really confused how this is anywhere close to level. It seems like black should be winning, but perhaps there's some avenue for white to survive. But king g6 now, maybe white's bishop e5, is that the point? To freeze the black king in his place?
Yeah, it looks like he might be banking on that. Maybe you use the h6 square just to put your pawn on g6 and kind of guarantee that you march up the board, but you are trapping your own king at the same time. And yeah, it's always that eternal question. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Who's trapping who? Is the black bishop trapped? Is the white knight trapped? Neither can move. So you have to play with the rest of your army almost. And yeah, it's going to be a long grind. But I think we both feel, Robert, that Maxime shouldn't be able to hold this unless given a helping hand by Levon Aronian.
If he survives this difficult endgame, the second in a row, I will just be completely impressed. I mean, just this position, it looks like white should be lost, and yet Maxime, he is trying to dig deep and hold on. I do believe Levon will win it, but we will come back to it. There still is plenty of life left in this game, but the others are heating up, David, and as I look at some of the other games, and you pulled one up here, this one, it looks like it's petering out because of the blockade on the dark squares. Just continue moving your bishop away from the black king, and there are no difficulties in this one. But I saw that Firouzja's in trouble, actually, against Fedoseev. So we know how strong Vladimir is. That bishop on a5, speaking of trap pieces, that's not going anywhere, and black's knights are very active.
Yeah, that's right. One horrible piece. I think the message here, kids, is don't put your pieces on the A file. Don't trap your pieces behind enemy lines. I just wanted to pull out that game. Magnus, Carlsen, and Jan Nepomniachtchi have now drawn. That shows opposite color bishops when it's just pure bishops alone do have that drawish tendency. So first result of this round, but Firouzja, yeah, he's done some real kind of self-inflicted, I've got to say, damage to his position. This bishop pressing the self-destruct button. I don't know how you trap it exactly. It's a bit like that knight, but you kind of just move your pieces on over, and eventually the black knights surely will get a chance to jump in. I'm not sure when or how, but yeah, white's knight on d1 as well, stuck, trapped. This is kind of an example of what not to do as a chess player, especially with your minor pieces.
And at some point, rook a8, rook a7, that doesn't look very pleasant. So I feel like Alireza is going to look for some kind of tactic to get out of this, maybe trying to go after the back rank. Maybe he can rely on that. But so far, it looks terrible. He's got 25 seconds, David. So even if this was objectively a position you can save, how do you save this with 25 seconds on your clock?
I don't think you do, especially not when you're playing Vladimir Fedoseev, who's fantastic in the endgame. We know he's great with black, having defeated Magnus last week. And Okay, I was going to say jump in. It does look a bit scary to jump in. That's the only thing. The white king will later try and trap this black knight behind enemy lines as well, but you gain the all-important time to try and catch this bishop. Still have to be slightly careful. White's knight landing on c6 in the near future. I think everyone here can see visually black's position is appealing, but you still always in chess need that final blow, and bishop f6 lets white in because of those tactics, Robert. Back rank, you called it.
Oh my goodness, look at Faceoff. He's so upset. He immediately spotted it as it was played, and he's just like, how did I throw this? Brilliant find from Firouzja, because it's the only move that would save the game, but because there's back rank checkmate, this might not even just be an equal position. White could win this game now as he's just up a pawn.
Yeah, psychological effect as well of that huge blunder. I'm impressed that Vladimir here, he didn't react even more because he knew he was winning and suddenly he's fighting for a draw, fighting for his life. But no, he's trying to recompose himself, and ultimately the white pawn's still very, very weak. This f pawn now will be dropping. Okay, level position, maybe even better for black still, but yeah, huge opportunity missed. Maybe we jump over to see the final stages of the Grischuk game. He's down to 5 seconds.
He's down to 5 seconds. I've been keeping an eye on that, but he's finding every move that is required in the position. He's up 2 minor pieces. There should be a checkmate, and queen c8 is going to hurt. Queen e6 if it becomes available. Doesn't really matter. Grischuk gets it done. He's a great bullet player. I don't think people always realize that.
Yeah, fast when he needs to be. Alexander Grischuk, we should say. Just fantastic player, fantastic instincts and understanding, but yeah, there's that chronic time pressure that I fully understand. I'm there myself. I'm in the same camp. But okay, he's given himself this fantastic position. He does give a check.
Even with 0.9 seconds left, he is scaring me and all of his fans right now.
Oh, I just took my eye off the clock. You should never do that with Grischuk, Robert. You're right, that was living life on the edge, and he only has 1 pawn left. If the bishops come off now, if he loses his last pawn, serious drawing chances for Erigaisi.
Right, because 2 knights versus no pawns, just king and 2 knights versus king, that's a theoretical draw. So that d3 pawn's really important. Can black get rid of it?
Oh my gosh, the panic, you can see it on Grischuk's camera. And this is his Achilles heel. We do joke about it, but that final pawn might just be dropping. King into e5, how do you, sorry, d4 now, how do you save it?
Oh my goodness, and I think the worst part is that the black king's gonna just go slide over to b2, and that knight on a2 can't just block that pawn. And all right, he actually has kept his knights together. That's the good news. But in order to draw this, you need the pawn to be quite back, like the lone black pawn. You don't want it on a3 because then your knight can't release to help deliver the checkmate.
Yeah, I think as long as black doesn't walk into a selfmate here, walk into one of the corners of his own accord, then black is safe. As you say, Robert, the black pawn is just too far forward. White's knight on a2 paralyzed. As soon as the white knight on a2 moves, everyone at home, black throws that pawn off the board. The main reason that 2 knights versus a king is a draw is because stalemate. You cannot trap the black king without first kind of just taking away all of its squares. And I remember when I first learned that 2 knights versus a king was a draw, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, no, Dad, you're lying. You're lying. 2 extra knights. But ultimately, this one theoretical draw. And wow, commentator's curse, Robert. He's blown it.
It seemed like he did everything right. Like every single move was with purpose. He trades queens, and there was a passed a pawn all of a sudden that he couldn't deal with. So Grischuk is only going to draw this game unless he loses on time, which would be, well, what's he doing? Okay, he scares me when he like uses all of his remaining clock, but he is handling things right now.
Yeah, he is. But the 50 move rule might well kick in at some point. I think this is just almost a guaranteed draw. Robert, what do you say? Do we stick? Do we twist?
Let's twist. Let's turn. Let's go elsewhere, because this one, it looks like Grischuk, he's just going to play on for the sake of it. I don't think Arjun is going to lose this one. But, oh my goodness, what is happening here? Black is, it's even material somehow. And white is 3.7 seconds, but is slightly better, question mark?
I mean, objectively maybe slightly better because the black king is so open. Practical terms may be easier to play as well, but the clock surely balances it out. I think 0.6 advantage for an extra 30 seconds. I think we'd all be torn in 2 minds which to choose here. Takes on c3 though. The black knight on b3. So many bad pieces in today's round. That one is almost trapped. Watch out if you're the black king. Checkmate on white's mind.
David, the threats are very obvious, right? Knight d6, rook g6, and I already see a checkmating net there. So I don't know how Faceoff saves this game at the moment because his pieces are stumbling on each other's toes. The knight on b3 is useless at the moment.
Ooh, he's setting a trap. If the white knight moves, there would have been a knight takes d4 check, a nasty pin on the c-file, but he's closing that door, and...
Oh! Firouzja barely got the moves off, but that check, it was a pin, and now he can take on d4 first? Whoa.
Take on d6, knight check, and the rook endgame's winning for black. Black's pawns, it looks like genius now. He's marched them up the board earlier, which opened up his own king, but wow, the g-pawn's just going to do the business. White's rook is helpless.
And brilliant by Faceoff not to take on c3 first, just pushing the f-pawn, the g-pawn's next, and he wins this game. Look at those fist pumps, David. He is so excited about being back in this match.
Wow, we might have to do a slower action replay later. That was crazy stuff. One game still remaining though. Grischuk trying to convert his 2 extra knights against Arjun Erigaisi, but no progress to be made here. We see a shake of the head on the clock and no way to trap the black king simply. The white knight on a2 far, far away. He's running out of time, both on board and in terms of the move count, Robert.
Yeah, I think if you put that pawn back on a5 and then white knight on a4, we would be having a different conversation, but even that might still have been a draw. But with the pawn so advanced, as David's been saying, the knight moves, you push a2. That's automatic. And now the black king, as long as it doesn't just force its own way into the corner, which could get it checkmated, it should be just a hold here for Arjun Erigaisi. And Grischuk is beside himself.
Wow. I mean, this round has been crazy. Robert, yeah, commiserations to Grischuk there. He did everything right until the conversion stage. I think trading queens, I do it myself. Often it gives the illusion of safety, but often you just remove your attacking potential, remove your best chances of winning the game. And yeah, there we go. Arjun, relief on his face.
And there should be, because as you see in the bottom right, Arjun Erigaisi, Alexander Grischuk knotted up at 1.5 apiece. In fact, all 4 matches are tied. We entered the 3rd game of 4 with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Alireza Firouzja a 1-point lead. They both had the white pieces, and David, they both stumbled.
They both stumbled, and in very different fashion. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave eventually ground down. We talked about his bad pieces, and he was not able to hold that very, very difficult endgame. But the clash between Firouzja and Faceoff, tactical melee, Faceoff was just dominant, winning. He blundered, and later Firouzja was the one who was winning. We thought, okay, it's impossible to hold this one with black with no time, but sudden full 360 again, and here we see another player, Grischuk, who was disappointed before Faceoff's fist pump. Nice to see all these reactions, Robert.
And Magnus again, is like, what am I missing? Nepo, that is a funny zoom in there. He's like, this is a weird position. And look at him, he's still, and earlier this game, he was just looking at all the possibilities and just surprised by that opening, because Magnus didn't win, but he caught Jan the pawn machine. That's always scary when you're facing the world number 1.
Yeah, always scary. I mean, that's an understatement, Robert. I would be terrified walking into preparation 2 pawns down against the world number 1 after just 10 moves as white. But he fought back, he steadied the ship, and that's what you need to do in such kind of high pressure situations. And talking about high pressure, I just wanted to highlight that final turnaround between Alireza Firouzja and Vladimir Faceoff. It was crazy, and we actually joined it just at the climax of the game. We saw the black pawns rushing down the board here. Vladimir Faceoff, frustrated, earlier winning, now it's level material. But the black king, a bit weak. He played the move f3. We saw rook to e6, when actually the very natural pawn to d5 would have been extremely strong here, partly because you've opened up the threat of rook to h8 with a nasty check. The white bishop now staring down the diagonal, cutting across the king's path there, and the whole idea would have been knight takes bishop, rook g6 check, and we see the mating net appear if black's king, for example, walks to the wrong square, knight e5 check, everything that comes with check, and this would soon be checkmate. I mean, plenty of parts here. Rook h7 I was going to put on the board, then I spotted a prettier one, and rook to h8 would have been made. Ultimately though, the clock playing its part, rook to e6, the start of walking in the wrong direction, and after a trade, rook to c8 set up the tricks that soon appeared. Rook to c8, there's a nasty pin, the white king rightly defended its knight, rook to d5, a blunder apparently according to the computer, but who cares about objectivity with both sides down to mere seconds. The white king should have set forward to e4 there, continued its journey, but knight to d6, a blunder, allowing a fork due to the pin on the d-file, and another step in the wrong direction, king to c4, allowing this trick. Rook takes knight, a desperado here, another knight check, discover check, and ultimately, when the dust had settled, pawn to f2, forced white to resign. It was this position, the black pawn simply marches down, the g-pawn will win the game, and Fedoseev breathes a new life here, and Firouzja has to recover from this crazy turnaround, this setback.
David, that was a setback for Firouzja, but also Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who was desperately clinging on in the game. First his own knight was trapped, but his opposite colored bishops. We have to show everybody how Maxime lost, and it takes one move to show how he actually lost the game, because he was doing everything right, it seemed, keeping the game going. He was able to free his own knight, but in the game's final turn, as we bring this up for everybody, look at how games can end even at the highest level of chess. White went bishop e7 check, not seeing that the knight on d5 could just take that free piece.
Wow. It's not a mouse slip, it's just a moment of blindness, Robert. We've all been there. We've all dropped pieces. We've all assumed we can play certain moves. Maybe bishop to e7 check was a theme earlier on, but Maxime here, no time on the clock. He dropped his bishop, knight takes, and resignation. Great spot, and huge in the grand scheme of the match here.
Yeah, Levon was pressing him, but Maxime was doing well. But one blunder, that's all it takes to end a game. And well, for these two players, Maxime, he's already earned his spot in the Tour End Finals in December. He'll be in Oslo, Norway. For Levon Aronian, he needs results to go his way. He needed that game because Levon, he is one of those players in the hunt on the bubble. And David, as we see, there are so many other players who want themselves to do well and want a player like Levon to not have such good placement.
That's right. The players, they will, of course, be trying to focus on their own games, but ultimately, when your fate isn't in your own hands, you do hope for a few favors from elsewhere. And yeah, there we see Levon Aronian, second place in Division 1 is sufficient. It's not easy. You're facing 7 other beasts in this division here, but this was a step in the right direction for him and a much needed stroke of luck.
And we saw Arjun at the top there. He needs to win. That's the problem for him, is he needs to get first overall in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. And with names like Alexander Grischuk against him immediately, Magnus Carlsen waiting, a player like Levon or Maxime, you don't know who are going to be on top in these matches because, David, they're all 1.5. We have a full-on excitement because there's no separation between these players.
Yeah, I mean, that was hard to predict that we would end up with all of these scorelines. We're likely now to get at least an Armageddon or two, which means more action for us, more action for the fans. But yeah, so many twists and turns, Robert. I can't say it enough. It's crazy. It's been a crazy day.
I really thought we were going to end 2 matches kind of early, and then we'll see about the 3rd and 4th. But right now, you can't even predict who is going to take them home because we have liftoff between Levon and Maxime. We have a known Sicilian. That's why the players have not used much time at all. And David, I guess my first question for you is, whose style do you think this type of position favors more? Or do you think it favors them both because they both like aggressive chess?
100%. Sometimes before a game, Robert, we've all been there. I know you've prepared a lot for your own games. Also as a coach, you want to say, okay, take your opponent outside their comfort zone. But sometimes it's impossible. So you play a position that's true to your strengths. And here, Levon, as white, he's gone into an open Sicilian, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave's comfort zone. But he's also got plenty of scope for maneuver here with white. He can, at will, take this bishop off the board. He still has d5 as a potential launching pad. On the downside for white, the black knight on e5 is beautifully entrenched on an outpost of its own on e5, and yeah, just chances for both sides. I would love to start attacking with white, maybe slide the white queen over in this direction, but ultimately just very, very kind of rich position, full of opportunities for both, and promising for us as well, I've got to say, Robert.
I'm going to ask you this question in every match, so that's your warning. Who do you think wants to play Armageddon more between these two?
Oh, that is tough. If I remember correctly, they played Armageddon at a World Cup once, or at least it went down to the last few playoff games. And yeah, I think Levon Aronian took that one by the skin of his teeth. But I'm going to say this time, Maxime lost most recently, so he'd be the happiest. He also has black in this game. He'd be the happiest to guide this to an extra shootout. How about yourself?
I agree, and I think part of the reason why I second that, is because Maxime has less to lose, right? He's already qualified for the finals in Oslo, and for him, he wants to win every match he plays in, but also these players, they don't want to just do well here. They want to get to the big prize pot in Oslo, December 17th to 21st. Reminder to everybody that keep your eye on that. Tickets will be, information about them will be released shortly, so keep your eyes out if you want to join these players in Oslo. But David, let's take a step away from this game, just because the both players, accurate decision-making from them, not much yet. There will be attacking chances, but as we look at all of the matches, and every single one is tied 1.5, 1.5, I'm just trying to look across the 4 boards and see which is going to be a surefire draw in Armageddon, or are we going to get fighting chess from these 8 contestants?
Wow, it does look like they've all started in rather cagey fashion. I've got to say, less of the fireworks we've seen in the early stages in some of the other kind of earlier games. Yeah, I mean, between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi, most of the pieces on the board, on the top right of your screens there on that red board. Bottom right, Erigaisi against Grischuk. Yeah, we're used to fireworks by now, but that one, very locked, kind of traditional Queen's Gambit declined. Almost symmetrical between Vladimir Fedoseev and Alireza Firouzja. And we've already discussed the Aronian Vachier-Lagrave game. Robert, I'm going to say they're all level, totally balanced so far. Opening success for the black side on most of them. But where are your eyes drawn to? What do you predict is going to... which game do you think is going to explode in the near future?
Right now, they all look pretty tame, because the players with the black pieces, as you noted, they're all doing well. And I see in the top right, Magnus against Jan. So a lot of trades are happening. It doesn't really inspire much confidence that the players are going to settle this in the 4th game. But Jan is better. That, to me, is very clear. He has played all logical moves. His setup is solid. He's the open A file in his line of sights, whereas White's rook is on B1. So things have gone wrong for Magnus, even though he's not in big trouble just yet.
Yeah, it's not big trouble, but H4 is very provocative, and suddenly the eval bar slides. I was literally about to say, before Magnus played H4, the only time Magnus loses is when he forgets to castle, or where he does some crazy stuff with his king, and he's left his king in the center. The blue arrow appears, Robert. Black needs to go for it now, and that's maybe the most natural move in the position as well. F4 for the score.
I'm not fully understanding what Magnus is thinking here, and that's usually the case because he plays so far above my head. But now he's just walking into an attack with tempo, right? The bishop's under attack. If you play Queen G4, sure, the knight on E6 is a bit loose, but black will just protect the knight, and then the position's opening up on favorable terms, for Jan Nepomniachtchi. So, David, this is really odd. I don't know if the opening... It was one where Magnus didn't feel fully comfortable. He thought, I don't have an advantage, so let me force an advantage out of it. But all he's done is force an advantage for his opponent.
Yeah, it's as if he's taking massive risks with no concern at all about the consequences, Magnus, which does often kind of lead to fantastic kind of fun positions for both sides. But this one is only fun for black, and the blue arrow appears. Queen to E8 is the suggestion. I guess it is slightly awkward to defend the black knight. It does come with check, so as you mentioned, you do need to hold it, move it. But yeah, the black queen on E8, I'm not going to say that's 100% natural, but maybe process of elimination. You realize that's the best square for the black queen out of the eye line of the white pieces. And ultimately, if white is forced to step back, I do see... Whoa, he goes for tactics. I was going to say the black knight will jump in, but suddenly the black king also a target. I guess the idea is pawn takes pawn on E3, the black queen jumps out, and that is going to be deadly. The white king too open, the black queen is going to feast on the whole of white's position there, but pawn takes G6, Robert, threatening checkmate in one move? What's happening?
That's exactly where I was looking, and I guess E takes F2 check. The white king may be able to slide up to E2. That's important. The knight on C3 covers the A2 square, and that knight may be heroic in its defense, but still, that position is very sharp. Black can always just push H6 and try to hold on. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a sacrifice on H6 at some moment for white where things get incredibly sharp. But I mean, now Magnus' play is justified, David. Neither of these players knew the evaluation, to be fair to both of them, but it does feel like at least white is having a bunch more fun than he was if black had just protected that knight.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm not criticizing the move, kind of pawn takes E3, allowing this kind of transition. I'm just curious that Jan didn't spend any time at all, really. He spent 30 seconds or what was it, 40 seconds on that move. And it's strange. You have so many options. Surely instinctively he knew his position was very promising, and that's where you sit and calculate. And okay, as you predicted, pawn to h6, he doesn't take, it doesn't kind of commit on the f2 square yet. That was a free pawn with check, but he resisted that that free candy because he's setting a trap. Let's just jump in with the analysis board. You mentioned some sacrifices on h6. Definitely watch out for that. But f takes e3 now, I believe, would backfire significantly because of queen to g5, and the white king is not going to be hiding anywhere anytime soon, just being hit from all angles. So this would be a huge, huge mistake from Magnus. So what else do you see right now, Robert?
I'm confused at what white is supposed to do here, but he castled. He castled his king. I wasn't at all looking at that possibility because I was thinking of the offensive chances for white, but he castles and he's saying, how are you going to checkmate me? And long term, David, in the short term, black is doing well with the activity, but the long term, that bishop on g7 is a bad piece, and the knight on c3 may be able to hop around and cause some problems.
Yeah, the white knight might well be jumping into the black position. I think Magnus would just love to trade queens right now. Again, it's kind of the mantra when you're defending, when you've got a weak kind of king that's coming under fire. Queen's off and you will live to fight another day. So queen g5, it's still such a complicated position. You kind of want two moves here. You want to put the king on g2 and you want to bring this white rook over to defend somehow, but it's still scary. Magnus down on the clock. This game still bubbling. It feels like something crazy is about to happen, Robert. They've made such committal decisions. It feels like neither side cares about losing. They're just going all out for the win in this one. They don't want Armageddon.
And look at the blue arrow. It's saying this is the only move that keeps the status quo, where black, I'm not going to call black better here, but there's the dynamic play gives chances for both sides. But e takes f2 is a move that Jan has been avoiding. I could see rook a3, for example, just attacking that knight on the third rank. You really would like that knight to move, so you have rook a2 to follow, going after the white king. So, I mean, e takes f2, it makes perfect sense. But there are so many other tempting decisions that black could go for, even rook a to e8 at some moment to chase the white queen away.
Exactly. So many other tempting moves. You could play rook takes f2. It looks like you remove a defender in the process, swing your other rook across to f8. You could play rook f6, talking of attacking the white queen, kicking it away and doubling up at some point on the f-file. I don't think e takes f2 is likely, even if it's a capture, and it's one of the first things we should be looking at. White's king still will have a serious attack to face, but for now, Magnus maybe survived the worst.
And I like your rook f6 move, just to double on the f-file. I guess the big problem is that white will be able to backtrack with the queen to h3, and then the f-pawn can move. If you leave that f-pawn for too long, you can push that thing up one square and then try to corral the e3 pawn, saying it's not much of an asset, I'm actually going to try to win that later. So this is a really sharp position. Time, extra minute, but that's not going to be an extra minute for long for Jan Nepomniachtchi, and he plays rook f6. That was your first instinct. It was my sort of the type of move that I wanted to see as well, but it was apparently a slight inaccuracy.
Yeah, and rook to f8, to my eyes it was very logical, but the blue arrow appears again. Rook to b2, defending laterally here across the board. That's hard, I'm going to say. I liked your f3. I like the idea of blockading. If you get one more move, put the white knight on e2. You've created an unbreakable fortress there with white. But if Magnus finds rook b2, maybe he's better now. And of course he finds it, Robert.
Of course, and you know why he's better, is that knight on c3 is better than the bishop on g7. That bishop is just staring into its own pawns and doesn't have any activity. So with the rooks coming off, if e takes f2 is in fact played, then white has a free hand and control of the light squares. That's the problem with bishops against knights. So Magnus, he is in pretty good shape, but the evaluation, it's not getting out of hand for Jan yet. I do want to zoom out of this game just for a moment because there's a lot of tension here, but I see the evaluation changing, and it's bad news for Vladimir Fedoseev. He has the white pieces. He just won with black, but Alireza Firouzja is currently up a minor piece for just a couple pawns.
Wow. And this is actually an opening that I've got vast experience in, mostly from the white side. Every time I play Gawain Jones, a fellow English Grandmaster, he plays this with black against me, and this one's just gone wrong. Like you said, material is one thing, but what's happening here? C1 is dropping off, the black pieces have just infiltrated, white's just been moving the queen around way too much in this game, and Firouzja, I'm not great at counting, Robert, but it's no longer a piece. It's a rook for just 3 pawns. That's more than enough.
No, I think Fedoseev bit off more than he could chew. And that's I don't want to say the problem with this play, but the blessing is his curse scenario where he's such a combative player that he can beat the best players in the world with black. Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, he just beat Firouzja from the black side. But then when he's the white side, instead of just accepting the position might be level or playing a bit quietly, he always kind of goes for it. So players love to face him, not because they think anything but the best of him, but because he just has such a fun style. Here it's backfiring for him.
Yeah, the big fish. He went fishing and ultimately didn't manage to reel anything in. And just, yeah, this is a nightmare. Bishop h6, a massive threat. Knight to g4 in the air. The white queen. I mean, you said A, you might as well say B. I was going to say go take another pawn on a7, try to restore the material balance, but that would have allowed the black rook into the position. This one, it's a matter of time. Firouzja is going to get the win, and bad news for Fedoseev in his Champions Chess Tour hopes in his road to Oslo. Yeah, Firouzja doing what everyone at home should be doing as well, just consolidating. Don't rush. Pawn to e6 takes away a square from the white knight on d5, and sooner or later, the 2 rooks will double up on the d-file, and 2 rooks are better than 1, Robert. I think we can say this one is over.
Yeah, I can't see Fedoseev coming back from this, so let's move away. We will, of course, update you all if a result comes in or if something changes drastically in this game, but I'm looking elsewhere and I see that Arjun and Grischuk in the bottom right, they've been really slugging it out. In the top left, I just want to add that one, it looks like it could peter out to a draw. White is up a pawn, is Levon Aronian, but black has the bishop pair and good control of the board. But I do think in the bottom right, David, if we can go there, the kings are on the opposite sides. It looks like we just saw some trades, but it wasn't even a full trade at the moment. Instead of taking the rook back right away, queen d4 was flicked in. But now that we're here, do you think that Grischuk's drawing chances, holding on, they're high? Or do you really like Arjun here, who has this passed pawn and, at least for the moment, a very safe king?
Yeah, for once I do agree with the eval buy. I do think white is better, but you do need to be accurate. I was wondering whether you get greedy. Again, grab a pawn on a7. Such a bad habit of mine, Robert. I see a pawn, I want to take a pawn. But ultimately, it is all about pushing those pass pawns. And if he gets his pawn to d7, which looks like it might well happen, he's just going to paralyze the whole black army. It's king safety. Oh, now you've planted a bit of doubt in my mind. Which king is actually safer? The black king might just hide out in the corner, and the white king might be slightly vulnerable to some checks. I'm going to say Grischuk, especially with the clock. He's going to need a bit of luck to save this one. Do you think Arjun is going to get the job done?
I'm wondering at the moment, like, what trades benefit each side? Like, is queen e5 a good trade for black or for white? And I think it actually helps black, because if those queens get traded, the black king, it's close to the center, king f7, king e6, trying to hunt down this passer on d6, which is a huge thorn in Grischuk's sides. But what is the response, you think, after queen to e5? Is white going to take that pawn on a7? Is it high time to grab that? What do you think are the dynamics we're about to see?
Yeah, great question as well. Really instructive there, Robert. Queens coming off would save black potentially. Knights coming off, unclear. I'm going to say who that favors. It might depend on the specifics. Rooks coming off, distant dream for black, but might well help in the attempt to blockade. He goes passive with his queen, maybe scared of that idea of queen takes a7. I think Arjun would have said no to any queen exchange nonetheless. So, okay, defensive move. He is coming round though with the black knight. It is a bit of an awkward kind of standoff here. I must confess, I would just take and just kind of deal with the consequences later, but it would come at the cost of white's kingside pawns potentially. Who knows? These queen positions, these heavy piece positions, are so hard to evaluate, Robert.
They are, because you never know like where you want your queen to be stationed, typically in the center, but right now the queens are in the center and you're not making any progress. And as you said, the black knight can come back to f7, d6 it will need to be protected, and he takes an a7, so he goes exactly in the direction you wanted. And oh my goodness, what restraint from Grischuk. I thought for sure he was going to take the pawn on g4, but he says it's not about immediately restoring material equality. I need to get your best pawn off.
Yeah, really, really quality move there from Grischuk. Yeah, I would have been tempted as well. I see a pawn, I take a pawn, as I mentioned, but nope. It's all about the getting rid of the opponent's strongest focal point of their position. Yeah, knight takes d6. The big question is, can you take it? Should you take it? There will be pins. The white knight might just jump to e4, and you might have to deal with a world of hurt on the d file. So maybe you sidestep. Queen to c6 comes to mind, for example.
There's a crazy tactic. Like if knight takes d6, I was thinking if we can bring up an analysis board quickly, knight e4 and queen takes g4 is what I thought would save black. But there's knight takes f6 check. And after g takes f6, rook g1, the queen on a7 actually defends that rook all the way across the board.
Wow. Great spot, Robert. Like I was guilty of stopping one move too soon there, one move too early. I thought knight e4, maybe queen takes g4. Oh, that's for them to calculate, not me. But this is so key. Look at the white queen. Long range vision there. And this could be happening. Knight takes d6 has just been played. Wow. Knight e4. Is it happening? How's he going to save himself?
I was wondering the same thing because there's all sorts of captures on d6 and queen b8 checks available. Maybe is it the simple queen c7, I say with absolutely no confidence?
Oh, I think you might be right. Queen c7 does cover the checks. You do cover your knight. He's living life on the edge here, Grischuk, but he's definitely calculated it. He's got 2 minutes, which is oceans of time by his standards. Wow,
yeah, for him
nerves
it
of
is.
steel.
I'm looking at like, well, he's in time trouble. Nah, for Sasha, that's an eternity. So it looks like he objectively has been making very good moves. And look at Arjun. He's not trying to allow any simplification, no knight trades just yet. He just poses the question back to his opponent saying, how are you going to get out of these pins?
Not easy at all. It's not just one pin. You might have to move, wriggle around a few pieces just to hold here. And queen to e6, a nice move. Now knight to f7 would actually break the pin. So great move there from Grischuk. But yeah, knight to b5, I don't think we'll see. We might well, I mean, I'm beyond predicting here, Robert. It's anyone's game.
And I think white going to try to use those outside pawns later on if pieces get traded. The queens and rooks off the board, a4, b4, and so on. That could be dangerous. But maybe we should zoom out for a moment just because I see other games are nearing their conclusion. And we noted that Alireza Firouzja, he had the upper hand, and right now he's completely winning. The queens are off. He's up an entire rook. We don't need to look at that one in detail. But David, of the other games, I mean, Magnus has that good knight. Jan has active queen and all sorts of activity on the upper right and the upper left. Also a very interesting position. I don't know where to turn. I'm leaving it up to you.
Okay, I'll choose. I'll be decisive. Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi, because there might be a chance that that game is about to end. It looks like the players do have the option of repeating. It's up to Nepomniachtchi, though. He is a pawn to the good. Yes, the white knight is dominant over the black bishop. If the queens disappear, rooks disappear, white might be the one winning. But if he'd kept dancing with his queen to the d3, d1 squares, the white rook would have continued chasing. So it is Nepomniachtchi who's going for the win. But it's hard to imagine him breaking this fortress. White's pieces are defensively on their ideal squares, and black's playing without a bishop.
And playing with a rook, but that rook can't maneuver elsewhere. So you have your ideal setup from black, with the exception of that dark square bishop, and you can't make any progress. Your extra pawn is blockaded by this knight on d5. It does look like that we should just see this one peter out for a draw, but Magnus looks quite displeased with his play thus far in these 4 games.
Yeah, it feels like he hasn't quite clicked into gear. He had a couple of promising positions, right, Robert? But killer instinct, not quite there yet. But we should give credit to Jan Nepomniachtchi. He's played a very solid match and did have chances in this last one. A draw has been agreed. We will see Armageddon between these two. Let's go back to one of the remaining games. Firouzja has wrapped up his match in the meantime, as we predicted. And, okay, level material. Bishop pair. Tactics galore still. Knight takes d6. What's happening here?
Yeah, this was an extra pawn for white, but the bishop pair for black. Now black suddenly is the pawn ahead. Knight takes d6. Is it just rook c7? He plays it immediately. Knight e8, rook e7, getting out of that pin. So I guess Maxime, he's found a way to coordinate his pieces well. And if we see those trades, it should be equal, but that d-pawn still scares me.
Yeah, the d-pawn only 3 squares away from touchdown, but bishops are so good at covering all the squares on the board, covering from afar, and I think just so few pawns left that I don't feel he's going to be able to convert. As you predicted, knight to e8, he's going to get this bishop off the board. The white d-pawn, can it march? Will it just be blockaded? The black king is coming, and yeah, it feels like a draw with best play, but There's always chances. These two are both so great and so creative, even in the endgame. Okay, what do you think? Do we stay here? That Grischuk, that Erigaisi against Grischuk game, still in full flow there.
Yeah, why don't we go to that other game just because it looks more exciting. Of this one now with the king on h3, there could be some chances still for Levon, but the other game, that seems like it is heating up. F5 from Grischuk. He has played amazing defense. He's been so resourceful, and even that move there, like he's just trying to trade up pawns, take with the queen with check, and get out of the pins.
Yeah, it looks like he was all tied up here, just along the d file, along the 6th rank. But if he can get queen out, vital that it's with a check, then the black knight will be free to move. And yeah, now I'm not sure where the knight goes, but either way, you have to move this knight out of the way. Talking of exchanges now, Robert, I don't think you want the queens off anymore necessarily, because white's pawns are so far advanced. As you said, the b pawn, a pawn, and the knight endgame is just winning for white. But the white king now is at least open, so chance of a perpetual check potentially. Predictions here.
Well, I'm looking at the time. Grischuk down to 20 seconds. That's really bad news for him. He can't find a move. Like, what's he thinking about right now?
Oh, he plays another great move, gets his knight out the way, and queen trade offered by Arjun. This is crazy high quality chess.
And look at this, we have the queens off, it's still level, but it's scary for black. b4, b5 happens so quickly, and I love that move from Grischuk. It's the perfect move. That knight on d4 will be stuck trying to stop the outside h-pawn from Grischuk there. Really high quality game so far.
Yeah, and this is a key one to remember for everyone at home. Knights struggle against the corner pawns, the A and the H pawns. So this A pawn might well keep the black knight tied down for the rest of the game, but the H pawn will keep the white knight tied down. So ultimately it should be level. We'll see a bit of a race potentially, but yeah, Grischuk, I mean, he's found maybe 10, 15, pretty much only moves in a row, I'm going to say, Robert. Just the level of accuracy here to hold the draw. I mean, he's been pushed to the limit, but he's going to get it, surely.
You say hold a draw. I'm wondering if Arjun needs to be careful, because knights, as you said, very bad at stopping rook pawns, and black's king coming out to f6, pawn h4, pawn h3. You have to worry about these things. And the white king has to commit. Does it go up to the queen side to try to help the pawns go forward, or does it come back and try to stop the h-pawns, in which case maybe black's king will go to the queen side and try to pick off those pawns. This is a race, and both players in time trouble.
Yeah, it should be a draw objectively, as we know, but... yeah, all three results possible while the clock is ticking. Blue arrow appears. Arjun has to retreat his king if he wants to stay in control of this. And you called it, Robert. Oh. You've called it. The black king's running now.
Yeah, king f5. Oh, why'd he go back?
He could have gone for the white knight, and black was winning that race. The black knight would have held the fort. Oh, he's playing not to lose. He wasn't playing to win. He didn't shift his mindset. That is the most difficult thing in chess.
b6 check, and then knight a7. I think he's still winning, David, because that knight on a7, that's why knights are great blockaders. It hits the b5 pawn, and the black king is free to run.
Oh my god, you're right. Oh, he keeps going the strange direction, but knight on a7, the white king is totally stuck, immobilized. Oh, he might win. Grischuk.
Does he want to get his knight to g4 now?
Yes, he does. The black king holds the white pawn. The black king is just going to sit. And the h-pawn's going to cost white his knight. Arjun Erigaisi is going to be knocked down to the loser's bracket.
Oh my goodness. And this is what happens, David, when you're playing for a win for too long. And Alexander Grischuk, look at how happy he is. I have never seen him react like that. He is through the roof because he just stole that game, and he feels like it's deserved, David, because in game 3, he lost to the thread. He made a draw instead of a win. But have you ever seen Grischuk that happy?
He looks happy, he looks relieved, confused, you name it. He's going through all the emotions right now. You're right, Robert. I've been watching Grischuk for my whole chess career, 20 plus years, and I've never seen him react like that. That is just incredible. The journey he was on in that game alone. And like you said, he deserved it. He defended the whole game and took his chance when it did arrive. And we do see 3 players emerge victorious in their quarterfinals.
Wow, we knew Firouzja was winning against Faceoff, but he was up a rook. But Levon Aronian won that endgame. We looked away for a second there. It was even material, but it wasn't easy. And so Levon takes the match against Maxime. Maxime, he's already qualified for the finals, so he he'll not be unhappy, but at least he still has that ticket. But now, David, one match remains. We are going to have Armageddon. It's that World Championship rematch, Magnus Carlsen versus Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Yeah, full focus on that clash. We can't complain, can we, Robert? It's been a high-quality 4 games from them so far, and now it's going to be a race to the finish between them. I think both players would be happy to get black at this point, having seen how solid all the games have been, but ultimately we get one more game, and it is the world number 1, so no complaints. Time to get the popcorn, everyone.
Well, I think the fans, they should get their popcorn ready because we will have Armageddon. The players, they get a bit of time. They'll bid on their times and we'll see who gets white or who gets black with draw odds. But in the meantime, what can you do during this upcoming break? I don't know. You can study chess, but you can also go play with Rubik's Cube. Why not? The Rubik's Cube is celebrating 50 years with the Make Your Move campaign. In the past 50 years, 1 in 7 people across the entire world have attempted solving the puzzle. Like chess, the art of a Rubik's Cube is its complexity and the eternal human values of curiosity, perseverance, and creativity. With over 43 quintillion permutations and only one solution, what's your next move? Visit go.chess.com/Rubik's50 or use the command Rubik's in chat to explore. They're colorful, they're fun, just like the game of chess. So we are going to head to a break. This is the Julius Baer Generation Cup. Levon Aronian, he won his match against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. You saw how happy he was in the end. Alireza Firouzja and Alexander Grischuk did the same. But when we come back, it's Magnus Carlsen. It is Jan Nepomniachtchi. It's a rematch of the World Championship. This is the Champion Chess Tour.
All I ever wanted was like to be accepted by people and this and that. But I'm walking into hip hop, solving Rubik's Cubes and talking about anime and Star Wars, and it's like not a vibe. But through it, I was always myself. Oh man, the feeling I had the first time I saw the Rubik's Cube was like, it's only begun. Because I was like, it took me that long to do it. And I just wasn't satisfied. Then I'm like, okay, cool, what's next? And that's also how I feel about chess. I love chess and I love the Rubik's Cube because you can't beat them. It's like a game you can't beat. That's what's so cool about it. And the only person that you're really essentially playing against is yourself. Yeah, I was like 24 years old and I got a Rubik's Cube and I went on YouTube and I told myself I was not gonna leave the room until I finished it. And I was in the room for 14 hours.
Step beyond tradition with a drop of magic. Clash in epic battles where magic reshapes strategy. Unleash spells to transform the game. Attack! Defend! Trick! Master them all! Ready to duel in the realm of magic?
Can this young speed chess superstar once again shock the chess world? Denis Lazovic's stunning performance in online tournaments have earned him recognition from the world's top players. The teenager has even defeated Magnus Carlsen, which earned him praise from the world number 1.
He knows Denis is done perfectly.
Known for his solid and unbreakable style, Lazovic has consistently outperformed top Grandmasters.
What a result, 2-0.
His breakthrough came in last year's Champions Chess Tour, where his fantastic results earned him a spot in the CCT Finals in Toronto.
The 16-year-old has done it.
In this season of the CCT, Lazovic has once again proven himself as a force to be reckoned with, such as when he defeated Jan Nepomniachtchi and qualified for the Division 1 Winners Final against Carlsen in the Chess.com Classic.
Wait, E5? No, you can't take the pawn. But why did the bar go crazy?
What happened there?
His opponents know now that Lazovic is a player they cannot afford to underestimate.
He's so impressive, the youngster.
But can the young star once again prove his worth?
He's not gonna find it. He's got 1 second. 1 second. Oh, mate on H6. Rook H6 mate.
He's winning.
I can't believe it.
Oh my goodness.
Take.
Oh, right.
Oh. He drops his rook.
Flagging.
D3. Oh, Bach throws.
Antipov wins this game in the craziest manner.
Welcome to the most exciting format in chess, Armageddon. The ultimate tiebreaker. Armageddon grants white more time on the clock, but in return, white must win. A draw secures black the match win. White starts with 10 minutes, and each player submits a confidential bid with an amount of time they are willing to start with. Lowest bid gets to choose their color, usually black, and those coveted draw odds. Let the Armageddon commence.
You now know how it works. This is Armageddon, and the bids are in. David, we see that Jan Nepomsky bids 7 minutes 46 seconds. And how low can you go? Magnus answers 7 minutes 28 seconds. He gets the black pieces. He gets draw odds. What do you make of these bids? Do you think that Magnus should be happy, but he did bid quite a low time, so he's giving huge time odds?
You're right, Robert, that is low. We have seen throughout the course of the Champions Chess Tour over multiple seasons now that if you can get 8 minutes, great. You take the black pieces, you're quite confident. A 2-minute time handicap isn't that significant, but anything around the 7.5 or 7 minute mark, it has backfired from time to time. So Magnus, he needs to start fast. He needs to get an opening he knows well, ideally, but that solid mindset that goes with the black pieces, I don't think he'll be too disappointed. So I think win-win for both. Jan at least knows his job. He has to win this next game.
And I think Magnus just showed that when he had the white pieces, he felt that pressure of needing to win. He played a risky opening, and Jan has been solid. So this decision from Magnus Carlsen to bid 7 minutes 28 seconds, that's a 2 minutes 32 second lead to start with for Jan, but he needs to prove an advantage out of the gates, and that is very difficult against the world's #1 player.
You're right, actually, for both. Such strong opening repertoires. When they want to be solid, they're so hard to beat. So big stakes on the line in this game, but also in the opening phases. We see another English opening. That last game between them with colors reversed was also in English, as Magnus didn't kind of get the ideal position from the off, as you mentioned. Here, it's a 4 knights variation, and we see pretty much a reversed Sicilian, Robert. It's an open Sicilian, just with reverse colors. So white has an extra tempo, and okay, this is solid stuff from Magnus, all been seen before. What do you make of the early decisions here?
I think a good decision by Magnus. He clarified some things early on. Right now, it's tempting. You see a pin for white to play pawn d4 to d5, but this is standard across a number of different openings. Black can then play a6 and kick the bishop out of there. So this isn't winning material for white. This is just standard play from Magnus, and I have to say, he's doing really well because he's only spent 12 seconds, and now Jan is about to approach a minute spent.
Yeah. Any seconds you can eat away at your opponent's clock tends to be a bit of a moral victory. And Magnus does have experience in this type of position with both colors. He actually lost a game from the white side, I think not this last couple of moves, but this whole variation in general up until just a move or two ago. He lost from the white side against Nodibek Abdusattorov in Vaikanze a couple of years ago. He studied it in depth, Magnus. So definitely an opening win for him, Robert. Feels like Jan, this is already borderline too long, I think, yet to come up with anything. Ultimately, he might just castle, he might push a pawn forward to e4, take the center, but black is rock solid. That's all you want. Now it's only a minute between them almost.
And we see the feature chat there. Magnus is just savage in this format. He is unbelievable, no matter what the format is. Maybe he wouldn't be so good at loser's chess. He doesn't lose very often, but otherwise, he is doing great. And as you said, David, I think you're spot on that Jan is investing too much time here. Perfect is the enemy of the good, especially when the clock is ticking. And now Magnus can look at this just like it's any other game where he didn't actually give away time odds. He's just playing normal chess.
Yeah, it's just a normal position. Ultimately, you just have to get castled. You just have to get your pieces out. You'll get a chance later at some point to mix things up, but you need more time than your opponent. Now it's only 30 odd seconds between them. Long think, wrong think is kind of the cliched statement here, but for Armageddon especially, that is important. And d5, I mean, you predicted it, Robert. This is elementary stuff, breaking the pin. If the bishop retreats, you break it again. You push a pawn to b5, and this diagonal, you don't lose material. Maybe you lose a pawn, but you get the bishop pair at least for it. It feels like Jan, that's a step in the wrong direction, especially if he's freestyling now, which it looks like he is. I fear for him.
Well, we know that Magnus loves freestyle chess. He created or is in part of a whole league involved in that. And you see that Jan steps back with his bishop. Back to e2 it goes. That frees up the black knight. And the good news for Jan is that he must win this game. There's plenty of life left. The bad news is he's not really up on time anymore, so he will have the pressure. The onus is squarely on his shoulders. And look at that knight backing up to its starting square, because instead of just going to e7, which looks more active for now, think about the future. Where do your pieces belong? The c5 square is juicy.
Beautiful outpost. Spotted, of course, by Magnus Carlsen here. I'm pretty sure he's going to just land his knight on that square and smile. His pieces are all very healthy. The bishop will come out soon as well. It's just about whether he castles. There we go. He castles first. And now the knight lands on c5. Where are white's pawn breaks? I know that's kind of how you like to kind of assess a middle game, right, Robert? And right now, unless white's breaking with f4, which might be tempting while the black queen sits on this diagonal, yeah, looks unlikely to happen now. But unless white's breaking with that move, hard to know where the kind of life is coming from for white's position.
You're asking all the right questions, and Magnus is answering them whenever either of us ask before we can finish our sentence. So the queen slid out of the diagonal. Bishop f5. Look at these pieces. All of black's pieces have a purpose. White is a bit passive right now. You're indicating that c2 and d3, there is light square control for black. And remember, white needs to win this game, not just equalize from a slightly worse position at the moment.
Yeah, equalizing this one is, I guess, the first step for Jan, but he can't be too happy with the position that he's got right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Magnus kind of just centralizes his rooks and waits for a moment to kind of open up the position on his terms. Of course, there's more committal things that could be done. You could land a knight onto d3 at some point. There might be tactics, so I don't know if you can rush in. e4 would cement that square, but then you would open up the white dark square bishop. So I'm not sure how keen Magnus is to commit, with a draw being sufficient. Maybe he will try and force the issue. Ideas that come to mind also would include rook to b8, b5, all these pawn breaks, Robert. But finally, Magnus is starting to spend a bit of time, and the minute difference between them has been re-established.
That's important because Jan, he needs to press Magnus on the clock. We know how quick Jan likes to play chess, and he is worse. There's no question about it. It's easier to play from the black side. But my question is really like, what would Wumpus do? Right? That's the big question. What would Wumpus do? Because Dr. Impossible Wumpus, and like that's the only thing that can answer this question. How do you beat Magnus Carlsen when he is playing this well and this solidly?
Wow, Robert, I was not expecting that cameo, I must admit. How do you beat Magnus Carlsen? What would Wumpus do? Wow. F4, clearly that's what would happen.
Whoa.
F4, fight fire with fire. Otherwise, it's just one-way traffic. If Black shuts things down, it would have been Magnus, all about Magnus. Suddenly, game on.
That is a huge move from Jan, and he spots ideas like this in his sleep. Rook e8 is what you want to play. Watch out, bishop h5. There's a skewer there. The queen is in the front. That means you're going to lose material. So, oh, well, he walked right into it.
Wow. And Jan reacts slightly. Magnus, he's blundered. He's lost the exchange for no compensation, I'm going to say here, Robert. It's an open position. White's rooks are clearly better than the bishops.
And I don't speak Norwegian, but I imagine there's some choice words coming from Magnus there. He's mad at himself. He's also still down about 45 seconds on the clock. But look at this decision. That is, I mean, Magnus is mad. He's playing not so well, but that's like I think a good choice from him. He needs to mix things up and make the position as complicated as possible. But it just seems like he's out of it now. He's moving quickly, but you can tell he feels like things have gone out of hand.
Yeah, Magnus is tilted. He's trying to get back in the zone. You see a slightly curious look on Magnus's face, and that's when he's trying to imagine there's still hope. Okay, it's not so easy. There's still some tactics, and he's right. He's got threats. Bishop takes rook at some point, maybe, if you want to gain some material back. But, okay, the white pawn's super strong. Watch out, though. Knight g3 is a nasty threat. Robert, still alive.
And you can tell, like, Magnus is shaking his head right now, but Jan has to dig deep. I mean, he's rolling up his sleeves, but Knight g3 is a serious threat. Bishop takes c1 will always be available. Bishop takes c1 right now wins that rook for free, right? Because a Knight g3 check, Knight e2 tactics to follow. So this is a challenging moment. I think rook c2 would be your temptation, but then bishop a4 is like, how does it feel? You hit me with the bishop h5, I'm going to hit you back with bishop a4, and we've got a game of it.
Yeah, hit me with your best shot. Rook c2 is going to be hit in a variety of ways. There's also Knight g3 check with another check to follow, and White's going to be tied up in knots, just trying to evade all of these threats. Wow, maybe e5, which I was actually about to praise as the most natural move, keeping control. Maybe it just allowed the Black Knight in unnecessarily, and suddenly 3 attacking pieces, White's defensive forces not perfectly coordinated. Robert, I think at the very minimum, Jan's going to burn half of his remaining time on the next couple of moves. And suddenly it's, lifeline for Magnus Carlsen.
It's back to Wumpus over here, like what to do. I actually think about the move g3 for White, which seems completely out of my mind, but I'm just trying to make sure that I have some space for the king. I think we have to remind everybody, including ourselves, that White needs to win this game, right? So if something happens where Black is able to reestablish the material, oh my goodness, Knight g3, bishop e3, knight back to e4, is that what's up?
Wow, I think you're right. I'm looking for all sorts of crazy checkmates, but Knight g3, blue arrow shows it. I think it's by far the most obvious move. The only other candidate would be to take on c1. You mentioned that's a free rook, Robert. That could be a temptation as well, at the very minimum. But Knight g3 check. Oh, do we jump in? Magnus has a few minutes. Maybe we just quickly bring up an analysis board and show why this last move was a mistake by Jan Nepomniachtchi. A check. You mentioned it's the most obvious. There is a pin on the h-file, so king. Unless you sacrifice your queen, king here, and maybe you survive if Black gives a check. You mentioned knight to e4. The other rook can defend. Still looks beautiful for Black. White is tied up. But the most decisive move seems to be actually in this position, just taking the rook, because the other rook is attacked. Keep things clean and simple.
My goodness, and Magnus, of course, spots it. David, how tempting is it to play for tactics when you're down 2 exchanges? But sometimes when your opponent blunders, you just take one rook and then you win the other if the knight's captured on f1. This is completely winning all of a sudden for Black.
And look at Jan's face. It's just eyes wide and shake of the head. He can't believe the luck that Magnus Carlsen had there. Let's face it, Magnus blundered first. He can't believe that he lost control, Jan Nepomniachtchi. But yeah, it looks over. The Black Knight can retreat. It takes a pawn in the process. White's getting checkmated almost, and Black's up on material.
Oh, my
wow,
goodness.
turnaround.
I mean, what a quick turnaround, and how sad is this for Jan? He just caught Magnus. F4 was a really nice try by him. Magnus made a terrible mistake with bringing the rook to e8, but that rook takes e5 decision by Magnus, just complicating matters. It gave him a fighting chance, and not just a chance, it looks like it's going to get him the match victory.
Yeah, you touched upon it there, Robert, but great tip again for everyone at home. We all blunder. We've all been there. We've all lost material. We've all walked into pins, forks, you name it, but just making things messy. The opponent wants control, especially when they're material up. Making things messy is the last thing they want. And confusing the opponent, randomizing it, that's often the best way forward. That's what Magnus can do. He's got all these different gears. That's the problem. He's the world number one. He's obviously positional endgame genius. But if he needs to randomize it, if he needs to make that mess, he can. And he has, and looks like he's about to win thanks to that.
It just, you can see it on Jan's face. He's like, what do I need to do to beat this guy? He already beat me in a world championship. After that really long, hard-fought game with that material imbalance, you felt like Jan sort of collapsed after that. I mean, Magnus also found his strength. But here, Magnus blundered in one turn and still wins. This is over now. It's completely done.
It's over, and we're about to see a resignation. Judging from the body language, Magnus Carlsen takes the Armageddon. Black gets the win, and what can we say, Robert? That was a crazy game.
And Jan Nepomniachtchi's out of there as fast as he can. I mean, he just gets rid of the camera. He says, I cannot believe this. But it doesn't matter how it happened. Magnus Carlsen wins the Armageddon game with the black pieces. I mean, he's not happy with his performance. That's clear, David. But it was still a match victory for Magnus, back against the wall. Doesn't matter what people throw at him. He still seems to get the job done. That was close, though.
That was close. Of course, it's the result that matters. It's the result that everyone remembers. It's what will guide him through to the winners' semi-finals, Magnus Carlsen. But it wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, and ultimately he did it the hard way. But that's the skill of a champion, getting the results, grinding out those results by tactical means, by trickery, any means possible, and getting the job done even when you're not in your best shape. And Jan Nepomniachtchi came close. I think we have to applaud him for a great match today. He fought Magnus hand to hand and was living to survive the tail, but ultimately just one slip, and that was it. Wow, what a day of chess.
What a day indeed. Magnus Carlsen joins Alexander Grischuk, Levon Aronian, and Alireza Firouzja as they continue on in the winner's bracket. The tournament's not over for Jan or for the other players who lost their matchup. You see the ongoing bracket, Aronian, Carlsen. This is always a mouth-watering matchup. And Firouzja against Grischuk, that's up in the winner's semifinals. So David, we have two excellent matchups in store tomorrow. And I think Levon and Magnus, they played each other many times. Firouzja and Grischuk, less familiarity between those two.
That's right. Levon Aronian and Magnus Carlsen, for many, many years, they were the number 1 and 2 in the world. They faced off many kind of big occasions, and Levon has had his fair share of success against Magnus in one-off games. Can he do it over the course of a match? That's yet to be seen. Yeah, Clash of Generations, Alireza Firouzja and Alexander Grischuk is going to be fun as well. And of course, we have a bonus of the losers bracket, Robert. The 4 players who lost their matches today, they're not done. They still have their chances to progress in this tournament and to get to the tour finals. And 1990s clash there. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave against Jan Nepomniachtchi and Vladimir Fedoseev against Arjun. That guarantees fire on the board.
Oh yeah, I wish they had, instead of 16 pieces each, 60 pieces. They throw them all at one another, sacrifice them left and right. But right now, we do want to get our Rubik's Make Your Move of the Day, because while there was tons of great action across the board, we know where it came down to, David. So take it away for our move of the day with, just our fine chess moves that we saw.
I'm going to build up, Robert, to that move of the day. Rubik's, of course, I was in Budapest recently along with many of these players. Hungary, the home of the Rubik's. And here I'm going to build up to it starting with the move f4, fighting fire with fire. This is a game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen. Here, Magnus blundered rook to e8, allowing the move bishop to h5 with a nasty skewer. Black loses material, but it was here, on the brink of defeat, Magnus Carlsen, that he came up with what I'm going to call our move of the day. Rook takes e5. He's already down material. Why not throw more wood onto that fire? And ultimately, he was rewarded for his courage. It looks like a bit of a bluff. It looks like, yes, after a capture here, black is 2 exchanges down, but white can defend. Knight f3 hits the bishop, defends against the checkmate threat on h2, but the real magic lay slightly deeper. Bishop to f4 now, attacks one rook. Jan Nepomniachtchi tried to keep his center intact, but now the knight came in as well, and white's king simply under too much pressure. Knight to g3 is a nasty check. The rook hanging as well on c1, and the move of the day earlier, rook takes e5, ultimately was rewarded due to this mistake. Queen to e1, walking into a check, the king moves, and a simple capture. Black is hitting the white rook, and a couple of moves later, once that white rook moved, knight takes h2, allowed the black knight to escape here, and white was checkmated just a few moves later. So Magnus Carlsen taking the win, but just like Rubik's, it's never easy.
No, it certainly is not. Shout out to our partner Rubik's for such a great product and a difficult game, but one that is fun for all. And well, we just saw how Magnus Carlsen beat Jan Nepomniachtchi. We will have Magnus on for an interview, so chat, get your questions in. We may feature them. So we are going to head to this break, but when we return, world number 1, the reigning Champions Chess Tour winner, Magnus Carlsen, joins us. Jan Nepomniachtchi, unfortunately, is not so thrilled about this, but I know fans across the world are. We'll be right back, everybody, soon with this interview with Magnus Carlsen, the number 1 rated player in the world.
Do you think you are one of the best chess commentators in the world?
Wow, starting deep already. Yes, but not the best.
That's a lie. So he started off telling the truth, and then it was a lie.
Oh! I don't think I'm the best. I think Naroditsky's...
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And Leko, maybe.
Would you rather be competing in events or cover them?
Oh, I would rather, these days, cover them.
He had to consider that, but he's telling the truth.
Personal growth? Yeah. This is amazing. I'm proud of you.
Thanks. If you asked me this like 3 years ago, I would have said differently.
Yeah.
Definitely. Even 2 years ago. But
yeah, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, how much do I owe you for the therapy session?
I don't know. Do you think I'm the best chess player of all time?
Yes. I could just see the pleading in your eyes. That's why I had to say it.
That's a lie.
Oh! I mean, Gary did pop into my head first, so...
Okay. This is over. I'm done.
What is your chess personality? All right, let's see. How do you react when opponents talk trash? I started it. What's up, bro? Which is one puzzle rush mode you play for the rest of your life? 3 minute all day. We do it already. 51 is a high. Right. What would you play in this position? Take on h7 or palm move? Oh, yeah, that's a great gift. Bishop takes h7, 95, 25. In this position, which would you play first, knight f3 or f4? Or f4 all day, that's, you know what that is. Which time control do you do more? Bullet, absolutely.
Probably rapid these days.
It's Friday night, you lost on time, what do you do? No, we tilt till 4 a.m., baby. I am a artist, nice.
I'm a romantic.
No more fancy openings, no swashbuckling middle games, no attacks. We're here to tell you about what comes after that. I'm taking the time for prophylactic moves in this apparently pretty sharp position. Probably at this point, the knight is better, but the game shows that it's possible to play around it.
A dramatic Armageddon game, and we're joined by the winner of that game, Magnus Carlsen. Magnus, how relieved are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, obviously, that was a massive blunder, and I really feel like I got away with one. I had a really pleasant position, and I was sitting there thinking I can, do anything I want, and I felt like f5 was a little bit too early, but then I thought, yeah, it looks so good. Then he played f4, and I was like, oh, I just fell for the only trick he had. And then I just played rook a8 out of disgust, and then I thought, yeah, the game was going to be over. But fortunately, I found this idea with rook takes e5 to muddy the waters, and I saw that he had g3 instead of playing e5, which I think was kind of the easiest win. But after he played e5, knight e4, I thought it was not so easy. I mean, to be honest, like I was just happy to be in the game at that point because I really shouldn't have been.
And how did you feel was your level of play throughout the day? It was a long match, and I don't know if you know, Jan was also playing over the board earlier today as well.
Yeah, Jan was playing over the board, and he even suggested to me that we should start the match a bit later, which I agreed to, but apparently it didn't happen. Yeah, I think the level was decent. Like, this was not one of my worst matches for sure. Like, it wasn't great, but I felt like it wasn't horrible either. I mean, I did miss some chances, but he missed some in the last game, in the fourth game as well. So overall, I think it was a decently played match. And yeah, obviously could have gone either way.
And Magnus, you've been playing a lot of chess recently. The Olympiad just finished a few days back. How are you feeling just after all of that, and now this switch back to online rapid chess?
Yeah, I've been feeling a bit tired the last few days. Yeah, my form at the moment is not ideal, but hopefully, well, I'm back in Norway now. Hopefully I'll have a couple of days of, some relaxation and fresh air, and then I hope to be to be in even better shape in the games in the coming days.
Yeah, and you mentioned Norway there, Magnus. It was announced yesterday that Oslo will host the Champions Chess Tour finals. And what are your thoughts on that? Will it inspire you, being, again, potentially in front of a live studio audience?
No, I think it's great. It's a rare chance for Norwegian fans to come and watch us play. You really only have Norway chess, and there haven't been like any live audience events in Oslo for a long time. So that's I think that's awesome.
Okay, and I guess you'll be looking forward to those finals. Of the remaining players who haven't qualified, who would you most like to see join you?
Yeah, I haven't thought too much about that. I'll try and make sure there is not an automatic spot from this event at the very least.
Good answer. And Magnus, before we let you go and catch the rest, a couple of questions from our chat. Tom Q asks, how do you always manage to find resources, even in positions when you are down?
I don't. Sometimes I just lose. But I don't know. I think in a setting like today's, like I just blunder a simple skewer, and then for me it's very clear that if I take with a bishop, it's just lost. So I have to take with a rook, good or bad. So that particular resource was kind of easy to find. In general, I don't know. There are people like Nakamura, for example, whom I think are even, or Alireza, who are even more resourceful than I am, but then they also need it more often. So it sort of comes with playing style as well.
Mm-hmm. And Rotten Drive asks, what would be your favorite interview question after a day like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't have an answer. But I mean, there's all this emphasis on bad interviews, stupid questions, and so on. But you gotta, like, people gotta realize it's not easy, and that the cliches are cliches for a reason. And I think on some days the questions won't matter. Like, I'm not going to give you anything because I'm just not feeling up for it at all. And other days you don't even have to ask me any questions because I'm just gonna say my piece regardless. So but it's not an easy job, and I don't have a good answer to Rotten Drive.
Oh, well, if you stay on the call later, Magnus, I think Robert wants to ask you your full take on Zach Lowe, but we'll leave that for next time. Talking of cliches, final one, Levon Aronian tomorrow. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great matchup. Levon has been one of my favorite opponents for many years now. So it's great to see him do well. I played him a bunch in the Champions Chess Tour as well, with some success and also some losses. So I'm happy to be through, and it's a fun matchup, and it's nice to see. Who's the fourth? Oh, yeah, Alireza is the only in the main bracket. He's the only remotely young guy there, so that's fun to see.
Doing it for the old generation. And on that note, Magnus, I hope this interview was okay, at least. Just remains to say congratulations today, and best of luck for tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, David, and you did well.
Thanks. And I think that just leaves us to check out that bracket. Magnus mentioned he's playing this match against Levon Aronian, Robert. And he seems excited. He seems in great spirits.
And I think the whole chess world should be excited, because when these two go at it, and Levon has had some fantastic wins against Magnus Carlsen. Magnus, of course, has had incredible games all throughout his career, but from his own words, David, this is one of his favorite opponents. Playing against Levon, you know that you're always going to get a fight.
Yeah, that fight is guaranteed. I think a lot of fun is guaranteed, and the decisive results. I don't remember too many board draws between these two. And of course, the last remaining youngster in the winners bracket, at least, Alireza Firouzja against Alexander Grischuk. That is also guaranteed to be drama. At the very minimum, guaranteed time scrambles.
Definitely. Whenever we speak of Grischuk, time scrambles galore. And the opposite of time scrambles when we talk about Maxime Vachier-Lagrave against Jan Nepomniachtchi, because David, they're two of the fastest players on the planet, including in classical chess.
That's right. The speed, the confidence, they've got it all. These two know each other extremely well, first facing off in youth tournaments. And I've got to say, I'm looking forward to this as well. But fan favorites, Vladimir Fedoseev, the big fish, and Arjun maybe the man of 2024. That one is also going to be one to tune in for.
We have 4 great matchups in store tomorrow, so it's not like we are eliminating players just yet, but for some players, tomorrow will be their final day. David, it's been a lot of fun. What are your final thoughts about what we just witnessed, including Magnus Carlsen reigning supreme in Armageddon?
Yeah, likewise, Robert. It's been fun. The chess has been exciting. A lot of turnarounds, I've got to say, but it does feel like all of the players with so much on the line, the tour finals, tour points, the prizes, it feels like they're really bringing their A game, and everyone was here to fight. And that's what we love to see. Not too many kind of solid games, but that's the trend these days. And long may that continue. How about yourself? What was the highlight for you?
Well, all 4 matches were tied 1.5, 1.5 after 3 games. So to see them decided in the 4th and final game or in Armageddon, that's just great fun for us all. And I think the older guard, Magnus said, Alireza, he's the only youngster that's in the winner's bracket still. Levon Aronian and especially Alexander Grischuk, they impressed me today. Grischuk, the way he would get into time trouble and then still survive and then even win that endgame, that just shows true class. And David, we can tell how important it was to him. He just was jubilant, fist pumps and just getting out of his chair. I've never seen him like that.
Yeah, you're right, Robert. That was maybe my highlight. Just the reaction we saw from Alexander Grischuk. That's how much it means to these players.
It means a ton to them. It means a ton to us that everybody here watches each and every day. We really appreciate all of you tuning in, whether it was to hear about Rubik's Cubes or to watch these players solve their puzzles. It was a great day of action here in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. So Magnus Carlsen, he took down Jan Nepomniachtchi in Armageddon. Alexander Grischuk, he can make that stink face, but he still won his match. And then Levon Aronian, Alireza Firouzja, they're in the winner's bracket, whereas Jan Nepomniachtchi, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Vladimir Fedoseev, and Arjun, they will duke it out on their last life. So come on, everybody, join us tomorrow here on chess.com. It's the Julius Baer Generation Cup, a part of the Champions Chess Tour.